I want to say. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, January 4th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by No House Advantage. We got 12 games on the slate. Lots to talk about. We did this once before. Things have changed earlier in the day, and I assume there's going to be a wealth of news over the next 2 hours and 15 minutes plus. So you are where you should be right now, watching this show all the way up until 7 and then some. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how are things?
They're good. Still don't have a mic. Got kind of sidetracked this afternoon and then had a meeting, so still didn't knock that off the list. But other than that, things are good.
There we go. Always good. Giving the people what they want, that's for sure. We got LeBron out earlier, which is oddly interesting because now you could probably play some Lakers instead of having no interest in the Lakers whatsoever. We got a couple other pieces of news that have trickled in so far. Looks like Taurean Prince is going to be playing today, but no Lonnie Walker, no LeBron for the Lakers. Kind of starts it all off. Duncan Robinson out for finger surgery. Bummer for him right now. Needs to get himself back so he can get himself traded. Bryn Forbes, questionable. Royce O'Neal, available to play. Markieff Morris, available to play. Shea, not on the injury report. Drew Holiday is out for today. That is a piece of news that we got a little bit earlier. Joe Ingles also out for today. So we're getting a little bit further down the bench for the Milwaukee Bucks. But we'll touch on all of that in a bit. First, we got to touch on the super chat from Anthony. Said, way too much Cole Anthony. Who's the best pivot on DraftKings and how much ownership is good? I'm not going to be around when you make it to LA. I don't know what that means. But way too much Cole Anthony. Who's the best pivot? I think that we can sort of touch on that right out of the gate. When you look at Cole Anthony today, what do you see around him from a salary perspective that you would be willing to make that swap for? And how much ownership is good? Very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's really dependent on the rest of your lineup, like where you have ownership going there. As just like a hard rule, there isn't an answer. But I mean, comparing it to their chances of being optimal, and then also just how contrarian the rest of your lineup is pretty much going to get you to the right place. As far as Anthony goes, so we're talking about like what, sub 6K guards, I guess.
Yeah, mid fives, something in that area.
Yeah. I'll just say 6,000 and guards.
Yeah, I don't know his positional eligibility off the top of my head. Let me take a quick look.
He's point guard, shooting guard on DraftKings. Okay. So for one, I don't really think Anthony's ownership is too problematic, but
agreed.
Gary Trent at 5,500 getting 1/4 the ownership.
I like Levert if it's the shooting guard spot.
Yeah, Levert would also work.
No problem with Trent there either. Probably nobody below Anthony. You're probably looking to spend a couple extra bucks if I had to guess. But yeah, nobody from the Lakers, as best I could tell, unless you're sort of changing the construction of your lineup by going to a different salary tier. Josh looks like Luis Suarez. I'll take that. I go around biting people as well.
No idea who that is.
Luis Suarez was a striker for Liverpool who notoriously was suspended for biting people during games.
Oh, I remember that.
On multiple occasions.
Like relatively recently, right? Like last decade.
Yeah. 6-7 years ago. Chiellini for sure he bit, and then he bit somebody else, and I don't really remember who it was at this point. But they made bottle openers with his head, where the part you stuck the bottle in was his mouth, which was a really cool little idea if you were a Luis Suarez fan. All right, you want to get into this?
Yeah.
The Memphis Grizzlies are 7.5-point favorites in Charlotte, 235 total in this one. And we have Desmond Bane in. Q-tag on Tyus Jones, Zaire Williams, and Santi Aldama. Brandon Clark is out. We knew about the Q tags for Williams and Aldama earlier. We didn't know about the Tyus Jones one when we did our show this morning. For right now, I don't know how much we could actually do anything about it. I'm just treating all of those Q tag guys like they're in. We should know by lock. But the key piece that we need to talk about, Steven Adams projected for 40% ownership on DraftKings at 5,400, 10% on FanDuel at 6,800. How are you expecting to handle Steven Adams for today? Just because he is the second highest owned guy on this slate behind another center who's 55% owned, basically 100% of center ownership going to two guys on a 12-game slate.
The other one being Bamba, I assume.
The other one being Bamba.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to play a good amount of Adams. It's a good matchup. He should get plenty of opportunities here. You can pretty comfortably, I think, project him for a couple more minutes with Brandon Clark out. So, like, I like getting there. This is just an example of somebody that's going over owned, but at the same time has a 21% chance on DraftKings at 5,400 of being in the optimal lineup. So it's typically not good to just say, like, oh, I'm not playing him, he's too popular, when there's like a 1 in 5 chance that he's in the optimal lineup. It's more so about, kind of trying to balance that out, find some other spots where, you can make pivots, but also in individual lineups where you do have, some other popular plays, then maybe you look to get away from Adams. So I think, probably with the way things look right now, I would get to less than 40%, but at the same time, he projects as a really good value. We have him at nearly 7x, 6 to 7x on DraftKings. Like, it's a really good spot. I would think he was a good play even if Brandon Clark were in. Taking him out certainly makes it look a little bit better just because Xavier Tillman is likely to play fewer minutes than Brandon Clark typically does.
All right, quick question. Since I know you have the projections in front of you, what do we have Adams at?
34.2 DraftKings.
What do we have Şengün at?
Şengün is at 30.8.
Okay. And what do we have Mitchell Robinson at? A couple $100 more expensive than Şengün. Or sorry, same as Şengün.
$29.1.
Okay. Here's my issue. I have Mitchell Robinson at 33.2. I've got Şengün at 32.1, and then I have Adams at 33.6. I don't see Mitchell Robinson and Steven Adams as all that different. And we're talking about 40% to 4 in the exact same salary tier. I'm just shocked to see this. I'm really excited to see what his ownership actually ends up being. It's the weirdest play on the slate for me today. I get the Bamba one more because he's at 4,300. Like, you're really selling out to the bottom there. For Adams, I don't really see him as all that different than Şengün or Mitchell Robinson today.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big reason that the projections for us are so different is just the playing time. We have Adams at 32 minutes. We have Şengün at 26. We have Robinson at about 30. You could certainly argue to take a minute or two away from Adams and give a minute or two to Şengün. So, if you do that, you're obviously going to get it being a lot closer. Either way, I agree with you that once you start factoring in range of outcomes, those are certainly guys that you can go to in an individual lineup where you have similar ceilings and just much, much less ownership.
Yeah, and to be clear, I obviously also still project Steven Adams quite well. Do think that he is the best of the bunch, but there are some pretty natural pivots there at center to go to. By saving that extra $1,200 for Bamba, I see him in a slightly different light because the $1,200 is a shit ton of additional salary.
Right.
What do you want to do with the rest of Memphis here? Obviously, those Q tags could end up mattering, but we've got Ja a little over 10% owned on DraftKings. We've got Bane a little over 10% owned on FanDuel. Just not a lot of ownership coming in general other than Adams.
Yeah, nothing else really here. I mean, I mentioned it this morning that I do think it's interesting to get to Desmond Bane just because he's 6,700 and very soon that's going to be a wildly too cheap of a price tag. We've seen him play 28 minutes in 3 straight games, but we've also seen those games be blowouts. I think you're going to get a 32-plus minute game from Desmond Bane sooner than later. I think he's pretty much back. And this is just, not much ownership coming in, a very good price tag. But that being said, this is also a 12-game slate where you have a lot of really good plays without speculating on, whether this is the game that Desmond Bane plays an extra 5 or 6 minutes. Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of similar, where at 6,500, he's going to look pretty good. Should play around 27, 28 minutes. The best case scenario for him would be that he gets some of the backup center minutes, whereas typically all of his minutes are at the 4. you could certainly get a situation where, like, let's say Adams plays 30, instead of Tillman playing 18, Tillman plays 12 and Jackson plays 6. That could potentially get him more minutes, but even if it doesn't get him more minutes, it can get him more productive minutes. So that's, something that could benefit him. John Morant clearly always going to be good to get to as well. So I think Adams is the priority, but I also think any of Morant, Jackson, Bane look pretty good also.
All right. Anything else for the Grizz? With 3 Q tags, I think it's pretty hard to try to break down those sorts of scenarios.
Yeah, no, that's all I got.
Okay. On the Hornets side of this one, we've got a doubtful tag on Gordon Hayward. Kelly Oubre going to be out for an extended amount of time. Cody Martin still listed as questionable. This would be his debut for this season. So as we look at Charlotte, they also have their version of Steven Adams. That is 23% owned Jalen McDaniels at 4,400. To me, very easy to want to get there. I like him quite a bit. The price works. The fact that 2 other wings are already out sort of just means he kind of has to play those minutes. So I think he's in for 30 at 4,400 and is a pretty solid per minute guy. Completely agree with that ownership. Wouldn't even mind to get more. I got a little bit more on FanDuel as of right now. Let's just start with McDaniels. How do you see him as a value play?
I think he looks really good. And I think it's a little bit more difficult, at least right now, to get away from him, I think, just because when you do talk about these popular centers that look good, there's also just a lot of similarly priced centers that aren't getting a lot of ownership that also look good. There's not a lot of cheap, forward options like there are for McDaniels. And he's not a bad point per minute guy, like 0.88 DraftKings points per minute overall this year, 0.9 with LaMelo on the floor. So that hasn't been an issue. He's just going to be a really, really useful piece to get to.
Agreed. And then that's kind of it for Charlotte. Obviously, you can always play LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, those types of guys, PJ Washington. Fine, but there's a reason that the rest of this team is single digits in ownership. I don't have any issues with that. Clearly, I'm happy to get to some of these other guys, but I don't see any other priorities from the Hornets.
Yeah, I think PJ Washington could end up picking up a couple of extra minutes with Hayward and Oubre out, but that's also conditional on him not being in foul trouble. He'd be my second guy that I get to most likely. He is the second most popular guy from this team on DraftKings, but only 5%. Then, with the rest of the starters, Ball, Plumlee, Rozier, if you get there, sure, but that's the case for a lot of the slate.
All righty. Anything else here for game number 1?
Nope.
So then we move on to game number 2. The Phoenix Suns are 5.5-point dogs in Cleveland, 217.5 total. This is the lowest total on today's slate. Clearly, we have no Devin Booker in this one. Highest owned guy on the DraftKings side, 1.1% owned Chris Paul. On the FanDuel side, Mikal Bridges is getting 7% ownership. He's 6K, shooting guard, small forward. I like that flexibility. You're getting the minutes. He'd be the guy that I would want to get to most from Phoenix. If I'm playing on DraftKings, the most likely scenario is that I don't have anything from Phoenix.
Yeah, I don't really see much of anything there. Chris Paul leading the way at 1% ownership with a 3% chance of being optimal. This is just a team full of guys where it's like, if you're playing 150 lineups, maybe you get in your lineup here and there, specifically Paul, Ayton, and Bridges. But for any of those guys, you can kind of just start running down the list of people you would get to first. So I don't think there's really much that stands out.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be an easy spot for us to pick up a little bit of time. This is just wildly uninteresting. So then we go to the Cleveland side, and if I were smart, I wouldn't have covered up my depth chart with my crunch, but I'm not smart. So Darius Garland is doubtful. Evan Mobley, questionable. And we know that Dean Wade is still out. So from an ownership perspective, Karis LeVert at 11% on DraftKings, 5,500, shooting guard, small forward. Nobody on the FanDuel side is in double digits. Mitchell at 8% is your best option. I feel like Karis LeVert is a bit under-owned in this spot. He's my priority for Cleveland. I think Mitchell might just have a little bit more ownership from casuals just clicking his name because he went crazy in his last game. I just don't see a lot of priorities from Cleveland either way.
Yeah, it's guys that I like in tournaments. You mentioned LeVert at the beginning. Assuming if he's good to go, you're likely getting low to mid 30s in minutes from him. And he should be out there for every minute that Donovan Mitchell is not. Now, last game in regulation, that was a total of about 3 minutes. But on average, you can expect that to be like 8 to 10 minutes. You assume Mitchell's going to play 38 to 40. So that's, about that makes LeVert about a fantasy point per minute guy when he's out there without Garland or Mitchell. When he's out there with Mitchell but not Garland, he's around 0.85 to 0.9 fantasy points per minute. So he looks fine, but there are going to be some other guys that look a little bit better at that price range. Mitchell at 9,600, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute without Garland on the floor this year, has a usage rate in the mid 30s, an assist percentage above 30%. The minutes are going to be there. Everything looks very, very good for Donovan Mitchell. The issue is just that there's a lot of guys you can say that about on the slate. So happy to get to him where I can, but wouldn't expect that I'm just like jamming him into the lineups tonight.
All righty. Adams 5,400. You said 5,500. Then I misspoke, I guess. Does it matter? I thought you were going to tell me that it was like $1,000 difference. We're talking about $100. Anyway, I don't have anything else really here for Cleveland. Like Mobley if Mobley ends up out, does that unlock more Kevin Love for you?
Yeah. Kevin Love's at a price point now where if he's coming off the bench, I don't think you can get there. But if he's starting, he's still probably not expensive enough.
I have nothing else to add for Cleveland. Let's go to game 3. The Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that is just obviously always incredibly fun to talk about, is on this slate. Shea off the injury report. No Jeremiah Robinson Earl, no Poku, no Usman Jeng. The G League guys of Omer Yuri and Waters are still there. So for now, no one in double digits in ownership for Oklahoma City. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is 9,900 on DraftKings. Josh Giddey is 7,100 on DraftKings. Those would be the two guys that I'm willing to play. The more likely scenario is that I'm probably not playing much of anything from the Thunder.
Yeah, very happy to be getting back to that scenario. Giddey and SGA both always perfectly fine options, but much more in the tournament pivot category where, for example, Jalen Brunson's getting a ton of ownership in the same price range as Josh Giddey, and Giddey's getting a lot less. Brunson's better, but he's still going to be way more popular, and Giddey's going to beat him often enough. But nothing really for me from OKC.
Jordan's message in chat says, imagine paying to go watch this game in person. In a weird way, I would like to go to it because I'm sure tickets to an Orlando Magic game against the Thunder on a Wednesday are like $8. So I feel like I could handle that. It's probably better than going to the bar. Would you go to this game? What's the most you would pay to go to this game? If you lived, next door to the arena, we'll say.
I mean, probably pretty good money.
Yeah.
Because
it does suck that half of Orlando is out.
Right. But it's also Orlando. They have 3 NBA teams on their roster. Because if I'm going, either I'm going to end up in shitty seats because I'm going with friends and we're just going to drink and have fun and it's just as good as going to a bar. Or I'm going to get floor seats and it's still going to be really fun. I've gone to Wizards games when they're bad and sat on the floor and had a great time. It doesn't really matter.
What's the cheapest ticket we can get for this game right now? From $25. So you can get in there for 25 bones. $59 for section 113. You can get in there now. $471 for floor seats right behind the Magic bench.
Oh,
that's
man,
honestly...
that's not bad at all.
No. it is right behind the Magic bench.
Yeah, and you're still getting to see, somebody's just said in the chat, you're still getting to see SGA, you're still getting to see Ben Caro.
Yeah. For 135, you're it's not the floor, it's that first initial rise up. You are there, man. That's an absolute no-brainer that I would pay to go to this game. Hell, I would probably buy the $25 ticket and just try to walk down because there's no way people are going to this shit.
Right.
Some of those seats are going to be open.
And keep in mind, too, the floor seats most likely save you money on drinks and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. There you go, Jordan. Shit question.
I know at the Wizards game, you just go in the tunnel and just drink for free the entire game.
On the Orlando side of this one, no Jalen Suggs, no Franz Wagner, no Bol Bol, no Mo Wagner, no John Isaac, no Chuma Okeke, no Admiral Schofield, and no Kevon Harris. They have 9 guys available. We're getting a lot of ownership to Mo Bamba at 4,300 on DraftKings. We're getting a lot of ownership to Mo Bamba at 5,200 on FanDuel. Wendell Carter and Paolo Banchero are the other two guys that are pulling any real ownership. I guess Cole Anthony is as well on DK. He's not on FanDuel. Let's start with the Mo Bamba chalk. To me, this is the easiest chalk to eat just because of his price.
Yeah, he's just really cheap. I mean, the counter is like you can just this is still the situation that we've run into a lot recently, where you have a $4,300 center that looks like a very, very good point per dollar play. But let's say he goes out there and gets 30 fantasy points. Chances are that's actively hurting your lineup, even though it's 7x or whatever. Because there's just very likely to be two centers on this slate that, at least two centers on the slate that just go nuts in terms of raw points. And there's so many good, like 5 to 7K or 5 to 8K centers. There's a pretty good chance that a couple of them are in that range where you don't even have to build like a drastically different roster to get to them. You just have to sacrifice a little bit somewhere else. So you do still really need that big game from Bamba, I think. And that, is kind of reflected in the difference between his ownership and his optimal percentage, where he's pulling 55% ownership on DraftKings, but only 34% chance of being optimal. He's clearly one of the best point per dollar plays, but 2/3 of the time still not in the optimal lineup. And a lot of that has to do with his positional eligibility. You still just kind of can't get away with saying like, oh, well, I used the center spot and it got me 30 points. Like that's not going to get it done most likely. So that's kind of the issue, but also clearly going to allow you to build some very, very, very good lineups around it.
Straight into a cash lineup, correct?
Yeah, I can't imagine not playing.
Okay. How do you want to handle the rest of this Orlando team? Like, it's obviously easy to project Banchero for a day like today, but I feel like every other person for Orlando is a giant question mark for playing time.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, like right now we have Carter at 29.5 minutes. We have Fultz at 31. We have Anthony at 29. I'm cool with all of those. We have 28 going to Bamba, 35 to Banchero, 25 apiece to Harrison Ross. I might lean a little bit higher on Harrison, a little bit lower on Ross, but not a big difference there. The prices are just cheap enough, though, where I think that they're all going to look pretty good anyway. 6,400 for Wendell Carter Jr. He's down to 12% ownership from this morning. That makes a lot more sense than when we did the show this morning, and he was 24%. I didn't get that one, especially where he's center only. I do get it now. Cole Anthony, 25%, point guard, shooting guard, so he's pretty easy to get into lineups. Only 5,300. One way or the other should probably get upper 20s minutes. Don't know if he will start or if Gary Harris will start, but I would expect Anthony to find his minutes either way. And then you get down to Fultz and Harris, where, Fultz, I think, is probably the least appealing price tag out of Banchero, Carter, Anthony, and Bamba. But he's pulling 2% ownership. He's 6,600. You could easily get, low to mid 30s from him here with this team being shorthanded. Like, if he avoids foul trouble and doesn't get a fluke injury like he seems to do every 3 games, you could certainly just see them say, like, okay, well, instead of giving a bunch of extra minutes to Terrence Ross, Houston, Hampton, we're just going to run Markelle Fultz for 36 minutes. Like that certainly can happen. So I think that the upside on him is pretty interesting, but certainly a less appealing price tag than the 4 guys that are getting ownership. For Harris at 3,800, if he comes off the bench, not particularly interesting. If he does start, though, then there is some more minutes upside for him, and he is only 3,800. Not a good point per minute guy, though.
No, he is not. Nor is Terrence Ross. 0.53 over the past 30 days. He's 0.65 in my model. Caleb Houston also quite bad on a per minute basis. Interesting team to look at today. And if I lived in Orlando right now, I'd be going to this bad boy. It'd be fun. Is there sports betting in Florida? I have no idea. If there are, it's just another. Okay. I was going to say, if there was, that's another reason why it's fun.
He's the one I would expect to know the least, and he just immediately said no.
Yeah. How do you know? There it is. Anything else for Orlando?
Oh, yeah, they do have the really strong casino lobby down there.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anything else for Orlando?
No.
All righty. Well, let's talk about the schedule for the rest of the day, which is very easy to do. But before we even do that, 1,500 people in here, 162 likes. That's light work for you guys. Hit the like button, bringing you the goods on this 12-game slate. No reason that can't get up to 250 likes. So hit the thumbs up. Helps us out a ton. Coming up after this, 6 p.m. Eastern time. NBA live before lock. You get Greg Ehrenberg, you get Eric Lindquist. But we're not done there. Golf is back, 8 p.m. tonight, PGA Live before lock. Ben Raza, Jeff Ulrich, breaking down the Tournament of Champions. Now, we move it on to the Indiana Pacers, 6.5-point dogs in Philadelphia, 232 total. For the Pacers, it's kind of just business as usual. One little hiccup hanging out there right now. Chris Duarte is questionable. Don't know how much it would even matter at this point. Just not playing a ton. No ownership at all coming into this game. Jalen Smith at 6% on DraftKings looks more like what I would have expected it to be this morning. There is no ownership coming in on FanDuel. Do you see yourself getting to any real volume for a Pacer?
No, not particularly. And I do want to point out that the guy who just said, find someone as easily satisfied in life as Adam is by Wizards tickets. Acting like you don't want floor seats to watch like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown against Bradley Beal is about as egregious to take as when chat claimed that they would not bang Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's close.
But no, nothing really from Indiana. I think Miles Turner in tournaments is really interesting. Like just not pulling much ownership, 3%. So still getting 1/4 the ownership of Wendell Carter Jr. at basically the same price. Makes me really interested in Turner just because you know you're getting 30 to 32 minutes if he avoids foul trouble. Now, obviously, foul trouble is a risk here, especially if Joel Embiid plays, but just don't really think he should be have that much of an ownership gap between him and Carter and him and some of these other centers. Jalen Smith, we talked about this morning, his ownership's come down a bit, 6%, 3,500 power forward center. He's just a straight backup to Miles Turner. If Turner does get in foul trouble, you're getting more minutes from Smith. If Turner plays 32, Smith's playing 16. Turner plays 26, Smith's probably playing 22. He does have power forward eligibility. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. So there is plenty of upside there. And then obviously, Halliburton and Field are just guys you can always go to.
I totally forgot about that Kim Kardashian discussion.
Yeah.
Insanity. True insanity. I got nothing else for Indy, so let's move it on to the Philadelphia 76ers. And Sixers are basically business as usual. Although there's a Q tag on Joel Embiid now that we did not have earlier today. Sore left foot. For right now, I've got everybody in. For right now, no one for Philly looks all that interesting. I think the only thing that we should probably talk about is what do you want to do if Embiid is out?
Go back to the center rotation and get burned by whichever one I don't play.
That sounds familiar.
If he's out, what'd you say?
That sounds pretty familiar for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to get Harrell starting, I would guess. That's what they've done in the past. Obviously you could get the smaller lineup here, but if they go Harrell, you still have a 3K Paul Reed most likely backing him up. That is a fantastic point per minute guy. They're likely to split center minutes if Embiid is out. So, I mean, either one is going to be a good option. Reed probably looks even a little bit better at 3K. The only risk is like if Harrell starts, there's a chance that you get 24 minutes for Harrell and then like 12 for Reed and they play small for the rest or something like that. But if Embiid's out, I do think that they would both look like pretty good values.
Okay,
assuming one of them starts.
Right. And then otherwise, if Embiid is in, this is just not a spot that we're really looking for, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Embiid's in, it's Embiid and Harden both look really good, but also so do a lot of plays in that range.
Right. Good God. I don't even want to see what happens if he gets ruled out at 6:30. Well, 6:58. Right. Classic Embiid style. I got nothing else here, so let's move it on to the 7:30 game. San Antonio Spurs, 9.5-point dogs in New York, 225 total. For San Antonio, there's a Q tag on Devin Vassell. Keita Bates-Diop is out. Otherwise, this is kind of a pretty normal team, other than the fact that they're just dog shit up and down the line. No ownership coming in on either side. 5.5% to Trey Jones is. Well, there it is.
Oh, and the Red Sox extended Devers. Wow.
That's, yeah.
11 years, $332 million.
Shout out to, let's see, Phila in chat. Embiid fake questionable. Cheshire Cat, he won't be out. That didn't take long to be proven completely incorrect. Was that 2 minutes?
That was probably less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, that was fun for me. So very enjoyable. If you want to know what you should do with Joel Embiid out, rewind this show by 2 minutes and you'll be fine. Covered that perfectly.
We'll add that James Harden looks different now. Just better. 1.5 fantasy points per minute without Embiid on the floor. Going to play probably even more minutes now. Game's more likely to be competitive. So I do think Harden looks really good.
Bingo. Do you expect him to pull any ownership?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to look at that price range right now and just see. So he's 9,800. Yeah, he's going to look a lot better than. You'd rather get to Harden than like Ja at 10-1, right?
Yeah, because of the minutes. Like Ja is like a 1.4 to 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy, but Harden's probably going to play 5-6 minutes more than him. I think Mitchell is the kind of comparable one because he's going to play so many minutes as well. But Mitchell's like 1.3 to 1.35 fantasy points per minute, I believe, without Garland, compared to 1.5 for Embiid. So I think Embiid becomes my preferred option in that range.
Dude, this range is just loaded with guards.
Oh, yeah.
LaMelo, Ja, Shea, Harden, Lillard, Mitchell, Trae Young, and like I can keep going with Anthony Edwards, DeMar DeRozan, Halliburton. Well, Halliburton's kind of a step down after everything there, but whew.
Yeah, so the thing now you kind of want to keep in mind, Harden is my favorite guy in that range. But if we get something like 30-35% Harden and just nobody's going to play any of these other guys, even though Harden's going to be the favorite versus any one of them individually, if I can just get the field here and they're all going to be like 2% owned, I really like going that route and just hoping that Harden goes for 50 and gets beat by a few of these guys.
Yeah, it's different than when you see chalk at this sort of range in comparison to like that $4,300 range for Bamba, because there are legitimately 8 other guys that all have the same ability to do the same thing that James Harden could do at essentially the same price.
Right. Like Harden's median projections can be a bit higher now, but there's just so many guys that have that similar range of outcomes. Whereas with Mo Bamba, good luck finding another 4K center that can do what Bamba does, much less, project relatively close.
Right. Per Reggie
Bamba's
in chat. Yeah. Fultz, Gary Harris, Caleb Houston, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr. I don't think this changes too much for Bamba.
I do.
How many minutes are you willing to project Mo Bamba for at this point now? Look, obviously his ownership is coming down. Okay. I mean, I didn't exactly have him like rolling in minutes before this either. I think they'll still probably. What did you say?
We had him at 28.
Oh, I had him at 24.
Oh, yeah. I was leaning more towards 28 as well if he was starting.
Interesting.
But now I think it's likely that Carter and Bamba just split center minutes. Houston is, going to play mid-20s or whatever. Harris is going to play, 30 or somewhere around there. Probably get Hampton, actually in the rotation. More than he probably was going to be. So so now I think it's kind of Bamba still has a path to get there because he is so cheap. Like he can get there in 20 minutes, and also he could just play 24 anyway. We don't know.
Right.
But he still has a path to get there. He's still kind of interesting if he's low owned, but with how good the center position is today, it's going to be kind of difficult to really want to get to a lot of him off the bench.
Yeah, seeing the ownership will be really interesting. I assume that he'll still play a couple minutes alongside Wendell Carter Jr., just because that's what happens when you only have 9 guys. Like if you're locking yourself into 48 at just center, then we're talking about a pretty sizable chunk going to the other 7 across those 4 positions. It becomes sort of problematic, especially not knowing how many minutes someone like Fultz can really play, how many minutes Gary Harris can play in this scenario. So I do think that you still see them alongside of each other. I would obviously be bringing my Bamba minutes projection down, but I would be projecting him alongside Wendell Carter, at least for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just not really sure because they haven't had a tendency to stagger centers this year.
Fair. This is probably a more unique scenario than others, though.
But also, the fact that they're starting Caleb Houston, somebody that very easily could have just played 16 minutes, that can soak up potentially 10, 12 minutes right there. You make RJ Hampton like an actual piece of the rotation, and Terrence Ross, plays mid-20s or whatever. Like we've just seen them throughout various different rotations where like it was Carter and Bamba or Carter and Bowl, not sharing the floor and Bamba out of the rotation, and then it was Bowl and Bamba when Carter was out. But like you haven't seen them really wanting to stagger those minutes much. And again, they can here. Like obviously Carter can play next to Bamba, but it just makes me concerned knowing the way they use their center rotation.
Even bigger for me, we have no idea how much Wendell Carter Jr. can really play, given the amount of time that he has missed, the fact that he was just being worked back and then missed that game again on Friday. Like, it's just a really big question mark. Seeing the projected ownership on Mo Bamba and now Wendell Carter Jr. will be very interesting. Maybe something that we could revisit if we have enough time. Let's hit on the Spurs quickly, who are completely uninteresting across the board. Do you have any Spurs takes?
Across the board, as far as the starters go, their salaries are a little bit cheaper than we're used to, which is always kind of appealing when they're not going to be popular. But also, I completely understand why they're not going to be popular. They just are all guys at their price tag or positions where there's a lot of guys that look better.
Okay. Then we'll go over to the Knicks side, where there are obviously some interesting pieces here. These starters just play a shit ton. There's not really a ton going on from a weird rotation standpoint for the Knicks. RJ Barrett is out. Obi Toppin is questionable. That's an upgrade from doubtful earlier today. So I don't actually know if that matters all that much, more so on FanDuel than on DraftKings, just because Randall wasn't exactly the guy that was pulling the ownership to begin with on DK. And I think he's really the only guy that gets affected here. But Grimes is playing massive minutes quickly. Brunson, Mitchell Robinson, who's 2% owned on DraftKings, which I truly do not understand. But the bell of the ball here is Jalen Brunson. 7K on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel, 30-something% owned, and to me, completely warranted.
Yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense as well. That salary just hasn't moved, even though he has been playing more minutes. Leaves him just really underpriced in a good matchup against San Antonio. 34% ownership is a lot on a 12-game slate, but he's also very clearly a good play. The only other guy really pulling ownership here is Quickly at 6,200. He's at 17%, which is reasonable. He should play a lot of minutes. The thing that just concerns me is his rates this year with both Randall and Brunson on the floor. He's averaged 0.63 DraftKings points per minute, like a 12% usage rate, just doesn't really do anything. He's going to get a nice chunk of minutes where, one or both of those guys are off, typically one. Like he'll be out there when Brunson is off. But it does concern me as far as his overall rates go. But, he should still be out there enough minutes where he has upside. I'm just concerned by how many minutes he's going to play alongside them. And the last game didn't do a whole lot to alleviate those concerns because he had an 18.5% usage rate last game.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in Grimes?
Not really on the slate. Like, I think he plays a lot, but
yeah,
he's also up there in price.
Yeah. It's just when you see the guy that's going to play 36 plus minutes at 0.1% ownership, I'm always just like, well, that feels a little low.
Mobley is in, if we didn't already see that.
We did. And then Gordon Hayward out, Jalen McDaniels starting. Evidently Tyrese Maxey supposed to play a couple extra minutes. I don't know how much that actually matters. I thought Adam projected pretty well earlier, and he wasn't really popping anything for me. So is there anything else we should touch on for the Knicks?
I don't think so. You've already talked about Mitchell Robinson being fine in the tournaments.
Yeah, I think he's one of the more interesting guys today, just given the amount of minutes that he's been playing. Fascinated by it. The Milwaukee Bucks are 5-point dogs in Toronto, 225 total. Milwaukee is going to be without Drew Holiday in this one. Chris Middleton still out. Joe Ingles and George Hill all out. So we're starting to bring in a couple of the less than stellar Milwaukee Bucks for this one. But Giannis is still there. 11,900 on DK, 12,300 on FanDuel. Not really pulling a ton of ownership. Obviously, if you can get to Giannis, by all means, go for it. 18%, I guess, is still pretty sizable for today's slate. After that, if you want some of the Carter, Connaughton stuff, I guess. But to me, no priorities on this team. Giannis would be the guy that I would want the most.
Yeah, Giannis to me is clearly the guy that you get to first. He looks more appealing than this morning since they did rule Drew out. Giannis this year, 1.79 DraftKings points per minute, 1.75 FanDuel points per minute in 366 minutes without Holiday or Middleton on the floor. Should give you 34, 35 minutes, but he is still just a lot more expensive than that very, very, very good, like 9 to 10.5K tier. So that's going to keep the ownership in check at least somewhat. But Giannis clearly looks good. Outside of that, Portis Lopez, the ceiling that they offer, but there's just so many plays that look better on this slate. Same really for, Connaughton and Allen.
The opposite side of this one, though, continues to be even more fascinating than it was before. The Toronto Raptors look amazing to me, given their current ownership. Siakam, Anunoby, Van Vliet, Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent have all been playing their normal massive amount of minutes. They're right back to where it used to be. And for some strange reason, this entire team is sub 10% owned, including Pascal Siakam, who is 3% on FanDuel and 1% on DraftKings. Dude is really good, has the eligibility. In a competitive matchup, probably plays 42 minutes today. But I don't want to draw the line on Siakam. I would like to have all of Toronto given their current ownership.
Yeah, I really like the ownership across the board. And it's not that there's one guy that I think, you just start jamming into lineups, because Siakam does still have that issue where, like, if I just sit here and say, oh, Pascal Siakam's 1%, that's way too low. The implication there is that I'm playing less James Harden and I'm playing less Donovan Mitchell and I'm playing less of these other guys that I also like. So it's kind of like, it's a cop-out to just say, like, oh, he's 1%, that's wrong. Like, there's a reason he's 1%, and it's because these other guys look so good. But yeah, Siakam is a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy that, if this game is competitive, could play 42 minutes, like you said, and be clearly great. So I understand why the ownership is relatively low, but it's also not going to be very difficult to get above the field when he is that low owned. And you're getting huge minutes for the rest of these guys too. Barnes, Van Vliet, Anunoby, Trent. I mentioned Trent earlier when we got the super chat about a pivot similarly priced to Cole Anthony. You're never going to feel that confident clicking on Gary Trent, but he's getting 6% ownership and likely to play 36 plus minutes. Anunoby at 6,400 getting 8% with shooting guard small forward eligibility. Barnes getting 10%. Van Vliet, similar price point to Jalen Brunson, getting 1/34th the ownership and probably playing 38 to 40 minutes. I mean, it's just not hard to see how Van Vliet beats Brunson often enough to be a good pivot there.
Absolutely. By the way, I have Siakam third in overall points on this. No, technically now it's second. I don't know how much of a boost I would end up getting to Harden, but I have him only behind Giannis. Pretty big gap, obviously, but I got him ahead of everybody else on this slate. Do you think that's crazy?
Who did you say he was behind?
Only Giannis.
I mean, I think Harden's got to be ahead of him.
Okay. Well, I did give the caveat that, like, I don't know what my Harden update is now. So potentially Harden as well, but nobody else.
Yeah. I mean, let me see who else we have. So we had Embiid.
I had Embiid as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think like any of Durant, Sabonis, Morant are comparable.
I don't.
There's just a lot of guys.
I have a giant gap on Durant, but I don't even want to bring that up right now because I don't want to. We don't have the time for it.
I kind of just think it's splitting hairs between a lot of guys.
Oh yeah, so do I. Like Randall, Sabonis, all very much in sniffing distance here. Donovan Mitchell in sniffing distance. Harden is going to be in and around that range, but I was just like, from a general standpoint, I just have Siakam projected really, really well. I mean, that's what happens when you have 30% usage and you're incredibly efficient and you have a giant assist rate too. Like, you're just good. I don't think that we need to talk about the Toronto bench.
I don't know that the Toronto bench will even step on the floor.
Oh, the Toronto Raptors ran 48 minutes for all 5 starters. I mean, if there was a team, that's the team that you put the money on to do that. But you should put your money into No House Advantage. They are the presenting sponsor of this show. Hell of a deal going right now, too. The deposit bonus is now a match of up to $100, which means if you put in 50, they're going to give you 50. But if you can put in 100, you should put in 100. You're picking player props, and then you're ranking them on a confidence interval. So your favorite's going to be at 10, and you work your way down from there, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, all the way down to 1. They've got the NBA 15K slam dunk going tonight. There are still 900 entries to be entered into this contest. It's 25% filled right now, 5K to first. And if you really want to make it easy, I think I could help you out here. All you have to do is go to stokastic.com because we have no house advantage projections for you. They're just ready to go. If you don't want to do a ton of work sifting through all of the props, we have them prepared for you. We give you the percentages on both sides. But we don't stop there. We also have no house advantage optimal lineups. We take those projections and we make the lineup for you. You can just go ahead and grab one of those off the list, pop it into your contest, walk away. Take advantage of this sizable offer. Again, up to $100 on an instant match deposit bonus, and I don't even know why I'm saying or. It's not an or, it's an and use all the stuff that we have on stokastic.com for free. Absolute no-brainer here, guys. Take advantage. Build your bankroll here. We're giving you the goods. You don't even have to work hard. Sit back, relax, put your feet up, take the stuff that we're giving you, and more than likely print some money. We still have 6 more games to go. The Brooklyn Nets are... what now?
No minutes limit for Carter or Harris, whatever that's worth.
Not much. But, better than not having that information, I guess. Sets you up to get tricked. The Brooklyn Nets are 5.5-point favorites in Chicago, 235 total. We've got Kevin Durant around 10% owned on DraftKings and on FanDuel. I don't have a huge interest in anything for Brooklyn. I already sort of undersold Durant in comparison to everybody else earlier. How do you want to handle Brooklyn here in what I think is a generally good matchup against Chicago?
Yeah, I think Durant and Kyrie both look good. Harden does affect my interest in them, though. It does bring them down relative to Harden, but you're getting pretty cheap price tags here. You still have Irving sub 10 or sub 9K. You have Durant all the way down to 10K. Should play 37 minutes or so, assuming that this game is competitive. Brooklyn's 5-point road favorites. So I think they both look good where you can get to them. I am interested in the front court too, though. Ben Simmons only being projected for like 28, 29 minutes. And I get it just because, if you go back and look at Brooklyn's games, he's not always playing that many minutes, but they've also been in a lot of blowouts. And we have seen games recently, or at least a game recently, where it was competitive and he did play 34 minutes. That's what he was playing prior to his injury. At 5,900 and no ownership, he's still tough to get to. And that's part of, just because there's so many other good plays. So that's part of the reason you're not getting ownership there. But I think there's a very legitimate ceiling for him at 5,900. Same can be said for Nick Claxton at 6,300.
Yeah. I don't have anything that I could really add. I don't have anything where I feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone. It would be Simmons if I was going that direction. By the way, 2,200 people in here, 327 likes. We're starting to climb. I like the way it looks. Let's get that up to 400 quickly so we can make our strive for 500 in a bit. But we need 73 more likes to get up to that 400 mark. And we go to Chicago, who, at least for DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic, have been playing pretty sizable minutes. And, prior to the past 3 games, so was Patrick Williams, although maybe that was just a Caruso thing. But there's no ownership coming in here. LaVine's at 8%. Everybody else is 2 or below. Similar story coming in on FanDuel. Do you see yourself getting to Chicago? Because I kind of like DeRozan, LaVine, and Vooch more than the public.
Yeah, LaVine in particular and Vooch as a tournament play. DeRozan is at a different price point, coming in at 9,100, a little bit more difficult to get to, but only 8 to 9% ownership coming in on LaVine. Shooting guard, small forward eligible at that same price range as Jalen Brunson. I don't really know why he's getting 1/4 of the ownership. Good spot, good player. Should play 34, 35 minutes. I think he's going a little bit under owned. Vooch at 2%. I get why it's low, and it's because we've named so many centers that are at least $1,000 less expensive than him that look good. And it probably does come up a little bit now that Mo Bamba's not starting. But Vooch has a massive ceiling here against a team that cannot rebound. And we know Vooch, certainly very, very capable of scoring as well. So I love the upside for Vooch. It shouldn't surprise anybody if you just get a 3% owned 50 fantasy point game from Vooch at 7,400.
I like it. I was getting a bit too much Patrick Williams earlier. That's not happening any longer, so that makes me feel a little bit better. I don't have a ton of interest in him or Dosunmu. Do you have anybody else that you would want to touch on from the Bulls?
No, it's pretty much just those 3 for me.
All righty. Just checking back onto news right now. Nothing else has popped up since we've been talking. So we can go to Portland. The Blazers are 1.5-point favorites in Minnesota, 235 total. Another spot where, at least on DraftKings, there is no ownership to speak of. On FanDuel, Lillard and Simons are both around 15%, but I've got a little bit more interest in Simons here at no ownership, 6,900. That price kind of works for me. I like the matchup against Minnesota. I like what should be a competitive matchup as well. And this is just another spot where we see a team that has no problem playing their starters aggressive minutes in competitive games. So I think Portland is sort of like Toronto light, or maybe like Knicks light, where I don't see any of these guys as ultra big priorities, but they are very natural pivots to some of the bigger ownership numbers.
Yeah, I think they're just a good tournament team. Like, you look at the guys here, Damian Lillard, 9,700, 6% ownership. James Harden's going to look better, but we know Damian Lillard is just capable of scoring more points than anybody on the slate if, he's just hitting all of his threes, as he does from time to time. So, clearly Harden's going to project better. He should be higher owned. But in an individual lineup, if you need to get away from Harden's ownership, Lillard's a guy you can go to. Similarly, Nurkic, $200 less expensive than Carter Jr. He's very similar to Miles Turner in that he's got a really high ceiling. He's going to not project quite as well probably and not get as much ownership, but it shouldn't surprise anybody if Nurkic has a very big game for a $6,200 salary. Anthony Simons is another guy similar to, or in the Jalen Brunson price range, where Brunson looks better, but you're just starting to add these guys up where 1/3 of the field is going to play Jalen Brunson. You can kind of just take the field on guys like Levine, Simons, whoever else I had talked about a minute ago that was in that price range. I don't even remember who it was, but I know there was one. It's just not guys that you're jamming in across. Like, if you're playing 150, if you look at my exposures tomorrow, I wouldn't expect that I just played 40% Anthony Simons or something. But within an individual lineup, he can be a very, very good play. If, say, you have James Harden, say you have Steven Adams, and maybe like Wendell Carter Jr. or something. Probably don't want that Jalen Brunson piece in that same lineup, but Anthony Simons would make a lot of sense if you need somebody in the price range.
If you're building by hand today, it feels like a really easy day to build like an ultra chalky cash lineup and just pick two spots and start rotating around it, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again.
It feels like a day that's really easy for, like, when I used to hand build, when I first started, like, I don't know, 7 years ago or whatever it was. Like, that would be my approach, is I would build, and this was, before like good public projections and stuff. I would basically just build what I thought was like the best lineup, and then I would go through and just find what I thought were like the weakest parts of that lineup, like the two weakest spots, and say like, okay, well, what can I switch this to, or what can I switch that to, and just kind of build like that. It reminds me of that kind of slate day. Like, it's very easy to land on a very, very good lineup today. Like, there's just a lot of obvious pieces, but then it's also easy to just say like, all right, cool. What if I kick out Jalen Brunson and grab any of these 5 guys? What if I kick out James Harden and grab any of these 5 guys?
Yeah, like it's perfectly set up there for you to build that out and then just pick 2 or 3 guys, swap them to the lower owned options, then do it again, and then do it again. Like, to set up, you want to do a 3 max? Like, it's right there for you. Take the projections, set it to like 4 uniques with no randomness whatsoever. You're going to get 3 lineups that are like wildly different, that are probably not projected all that dissimilarly. Just that simple today. I'd love to see, I kind of want to run it now where I run a crunch and take my best lineup and then run like 9 uniques and see how big the gap is for a completely different lineup, because it's probably not as big as it normally is. Anyway, the Minnesota side of this one. Not too much to talk.
Just to kind of reiterate on this in chat, I know we said it a lot. But Phyllis said it's Harden over any other guards based off projections. Nobody will project as good as him. Correct. The talking point here is that that's extremely obvious, and there's a lot of guys around him. So Harden versus pick any guy in Harden's price range. Harden is going to be favored to beat that player, but you have like 10 to 15 guys in that price range. There's a very good chance a couple of them beat Harden. And so when you're talking large field tournaments, within a given lineup, if you go on to some of these other really popular pieces, it makes sense to say, all right, well, if Harden only goes for, say, 50, he's probably going to lose out to somebody here and not be as good of a play. So, yes, you're right. Harden is the best projected guy and the best play of the group, but ownership does also play a role in tournaments. And there are plenty of other guys around him that are going to have an ownership gap compared to Harden that is disproportionate to their chances of actually beating Harden.
It's sort of like looking at futures odds for like championships before the season starts, where you look at it like, for example, this year, it's like, oh, the Bucks are the favorites to win the NBA title at plus 600 or whatever. But against the field, it's like there's so many other options that are way more likely if you just start aggregating those numbers together. That's what we're looking at here. Harden is the best option on paper in any individual matchup. But the moment you add, I mean, we listed them off before, 9 more guards that are ultra comparative, like comparable for him. It makes it a much more difficult decision in large field GPPs.
Right. And that's why I said, as soon as Embiid got ruled out, that I'm curious to see what the ownership on Harden does. Because if it gets to like 20% or something, I'm probably just going to be like, cool, I'll play even more Harden. But if you were to get like, 40, 45% Harden across my 150, there's a good chance that I would end up at like 20%, because that would then allow me to get over the field on like all of those other guys. They're going to be like 2%.
Absolutely. D'Angelo Russell not on the injury report. Taurean Prince is back finally for Minnesota. Obviously still no Towns. Naz Reid and Bryn Forbes both questionable. The Naz Reid Q tag is interesting. No ownership at all really coming in on the FanDuel side for Minnesota. 10 to 15% coming into Edwards, Russell, and Kyle Anderson. I really like D'Angelo Russell today, given the minutes he's been playing. He's 7,100 on FanDuel. I kind of like him more than that 10% ownership. But do you see yourself getting too much from Minnesota? Does the news matter all that much for you?
Not too much. If Reed's out, you can probably feel a little bit better about Gobert's minutes, but not too concerned about it.
Yeah. I don't see too much that I want to try to prioritize for Minnesota. Again, 7,100 for Russell on FanDuel. Given the amount of minutes he had been playing or has been playing, I mean, I got him in for 36 today. That looks really good at 7,100. Don't have much else for Minnesota, though.
Just kind of like D'Angelo Russell should still play a lot of minutes. He's 7,600. He's another just guy in that price range, not getting any ownership, that certainly can beat Jalen Brunson more than 1 out of 30 times. Kyle Anderson from a value standpoint looks okay, but yeah, there's not much here that looks great outside of, again, just kind of taking random shots and tournaments.
It is a game that I wish that I had a little bit more of. Just Portland, Minnesota, get a bunch of the starters, competitive matchup, really nice total. Like, there are signs there. It's just like the prices aren't really working as well. Now we go to Houston. Oh, no, we don't. What's up?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I had said this morning, this just strikes me as a game that like is going to be difficult to get to in DFS for one reason or another, but also is a really appealing game.
The Houston Rockets are 7-point underdogs in New Orleans, 229 total. If you want to know how bad Houston is, the Pelicans don't have their 2 best players. Jayshawn Tate is out for Houston. Otherwise, this is pretty much normal. It's single-digit ownership across the board for Houston, except for FanDuel, where Jabari Smith is 11% owned at $5K. And this is just another spot where, do I see any absolute priorities from Houston? No. Do I think KPJ and Jalen Green and Şengün can be ownership pivots for some of the guys in their range? Absolutely.
Yeah, completely agree. It's just another tournament team. Like you mentioned Şengün earlier as a very easy pivot off of Steven Adams if you need to save some ownership there. Again, Adams projects better. He's greater than 50%. Like, he's a favorite to beat Şengün here, but he's not a 7-1 favorite or anything even close to it. Kevin Porter Jr., same thing against Brunson. Brunson's the favorite. He's not 5-1. Jalen Green at 6,600, getting 8% ownership is going to look fine. Jabari Smith's been playing more minutes as he's figured out the NBA, at least to some extent. He's only 4,800, pulling 7%. So all 4 of those guys as ways to differentiate a tournament lineup look good. None of them look like, top plays on the slate or anything.
Based on the clock, we have 15 minutes left, but in my experience, I could take this one all the way to like 6:15 now, right?
I will lose computer power again.
All right, folks, got a little bit of a promo for you. If you want to head on into the description of this video, there is a link that you can click on that will help you out. But before you click that link, click that thumbs up. We're up to 406. 500 likes are in our sites. So for the 2,400 people that are here, help us out. Now you can head in to the description so that if you are a new user to Stokastic.com, you can get 5 days free. This was 3 days. It is now 5 days of free NBA content for you. That's going to be everything that we have. Projections, ownership, our 1v1 tools, the lineup generator, everything that you could possibly want to check out. You can hop into our Discord and see what we've got going on in our community. It's a fantastic opportunity. We're going to be talking about projections and ownership and boom bust all the time during these shows. Now you can know what we're talking about. Our new lineup generator is there for you as well. If you're playing a relatively small amount of lineups up to 20, this is going to be a pretty good tool for you. So make sure you're checking it out. Again, if you are new to Stokastic, 5 days free, folks. Link in chat, link in the description. Now, we've got 3 games left to go. The Detroit Pistons are definitely in the NBA still. 6.5-point dogs in Golden State, 231 total. No ownership whatsoever coming into this Pistons team. Are they getting overlooked, or is this just another situation kind of like Houston where it's just a sea of pivots?
Did we skip the Pels?
We skipped the Pels. Anyway, back to New Orleans, where they don't have Zion, and they don't have Brandon Ingram, and they don't have Larry Nance. And that kind of makes things interesting. Good eye, everybody. My bad. Those 3 guys being out, a lot of trickle down here. And we're getting 10 to 15 to 20% ownership, depending on the guy, on McCollum, Najee Marshall, Trey Murphy, Joe Val. I think all of those guys should be getting the ownership that they're getting. And then I see guys like Willie Hernangomez at 3,800, and I'm thinking, no ownership? Can I win a slate here? Especially now with no Mo Bamba. Like, what do you want to do with New Orleans? Because I think it's pretty obvious why CJ McCollum's a good play.
Yeah, CJ McCollum, clearly a great option. Good matchup, 8,200, playing without Zion and Ingram. So just going to have the offense run through him once again. You know, he had been pretty inefficient this year. He's had some good games since, but 8,200 is just too cheap for the minutes he's going to play, the opportunities he's going to get. It looks like one of the best options on the slate. And then there's other spots to get to as well. You know, Joe Val's ownership has come up a bit, probably comes up even more now that Bamba's not starting. 6,300, pulling 12%. He's likely to average around 28 minutes here without Zion and without Nance, but you could certainly get some games where he plays more, and it's certainly a good spot against this Houston front court. You mentioned Hernangomez. He's risky because we don't know exactly how the backup center rotation is going to work with him and Hayes. But, for example, last game, you still didn't have Nance. Hernangomez played 17 minutes. Hayes played about 20 minutes. Hernangomez is a 1.32 DraftKings point per minute guy without Zion or Ingram on the floor this year. If you just get one of those games where Joe Val's in foul trouble or Hernangomez just plays really well while he's out there and he just finds his way into 20, 22 minutes, it's not going to take much for him to be a guy that really helps you. So certainly risky, especially because of the same reasons that we talked about with Mo Bamba. It's not just a matter on this slate of getting, say, like 26 points from Hernangomez. That's probably still going to hurt you, even though it's going to look good and make you feel good. You need him to actually go out there and like put up a big game. But if he falls into those minutes, he certainly can. He's only 1% owned. So from a value standpoint, he is certainly interesting. But again, you don't have a lot of margin for error, so he is still risky. I would prefer him to Hayes if you're going that route. They're both center only. But the reason is just that he's the better point per minute guy. I don't think either guy is safe. I think with Hernangomez, you only kind of need to get lucky in one area, and that is him playing more minutes than his average. With Hayes, you kind of need him to play more minutes and then also play at a better rate than usual. So I'm just going to lean towards the guy that I only have to get lucky once. Beyond them, though, Najee Marshall, 4,800. Trey Murphy, also 4,800. They both should get plenty of playing time. Kind of interesting that Herb Jones is getting so much less ownership than they are. Like, I realize that Murphy and Marshall are better point per minute guys than Jones, but to get like basically a 4-to-1 gap going from them to Herbert Jones, I think in tournaments makes Herbert Jones an interesting option as well.
Anything else you want to add to the Pelicans since I skipped them?
No, just like the whole team.
We're back to the Pistons, 6.5-point dogs against Golden State. Are these guys just pivots like we saw for Houston where nobody looks really good, but you can swap out to one of these guys that starts?
Pretty much. I really like the lack of ownership coming in here, though, in the front court. Isaiah Stewart in particular, 4,800 on DraftKings, power forward center, pulling 4% ownership. I don't really think he's much worse than like Trey Murphy or Najee Marshall. He should get backup center minutes here. with Bagley out. Those are productive minutes, and it also means he can play more. We'd seen playing time for Detroit kind of be hurt because they were running that 10-man rotation where everybody had a true backup. But now you're getting backup center minutes for Stewart without Bagley, most likely. So I really like Isaiah Stewart at 4,800. I also think Jalen Duren is in that Mitchell Robinson category where he can pretty easily play 30, 32 minutes here and just grab like 100 rebounds at 5K and basically no ownership. So the front court here is really interesting. If you want to take some shots on a $5,500 Jaden Ivey, I think that makes some sense as well at no ownership. But it's really the front court and Isaiah Stewart in particular that I like.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anybody like crazily popping up, but I just think that everybody looks a little bit better than the no ownership that they're getting. Now, there is some ownership coming into Klay Thompson, but not a lot coming into anybody else. Jordan Poole up to 8,300, playing big minutes, shooting a ton. No Steph around, massive usage rate. DiVincenzo playing big minutes. Draymond is here. How do you want to handle these starters for Golden State in what's obviously a pretty good matchup against the Pistons?
Yeah, good matchup, reasonable price tags. Jordan Poole, basically the same price as CJ McCollum. He's $100 more expensive on DraftKings. Should, assuming the game's relatively close, should give you 35, 36 minutes. He's only pulling 8% ownership. So, again, McCollum, I think, is the better option, but shouldn't surprise anybody if this is just a game where Jordan Poole goes out there and torches Detroit. Similarly, Klay Thompson pulling 11% ownership. He should give you mid-30s in minutes. If he gets hot, he can very easily be the guy in that 7K range that kind of just wins. So I think those are the two I would be most interested in getting to. Then you have Looney, DiVincenzo, Green. None of them really stand out, I don't think, at their respective salaries, but they're fine as like a last guy in type piece.
Perfect. Perfect analysis as far as I'm concerned. The exact amount of time that I needed that analysis to be. Are we working our way down any further? Actually, one question for you, since I know that you're not really looking at it. Looney is currently projected for 29% ownership on FanDuel. Maybe that has changed if we've had an update since the beginning, but relatively chalky, 5,400 power forward center. No update yet, so we can kind of just talk about what we have here. Does that seem a little high to you? Because it seems a little high to me.
Yeah, I mean, without being super familiar with how power forward looks on FanDuel, like it's kind of tough to answer, but for Kevon Looney, like that does seem like a pretty healthy ownership percentage. I'm trying to look now and kind of just see like who's around him in that price range, because obviously the power forward piece is what is.
I mean, here's a really easy one for you. Isaiah Stewart is 5,500 with the same eligibility, $100 more expensive. He's projected for 1% ownership.
That's insane.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
I didn't look any further. I just know that one is in front of my face right now.
Yeah. I mean, Jalen Daniels is getting 9% to Looney's 29.
Yeah. Maybe we see that come down on the next run, but that one just stood out to me as like,
Barnes
this
is getting
something
6%.
I desperately need.
Yeah. I mean, Harrison Barnes getting 6%.
Anything else for Golden State?
Nope.
Time for what was the easiest game on the slate to talk about. Now slightly more complicated. The Miami Heat are 8.5-point favorites in LA, 227 total. There is no ownership whatsoever coming into Miami. They might actually be the lowest owned team. And now they are significantly more likely to beat the piss out of the Lakers because they aren't going to have LeBron James on the opposite side or Lonnie Walker on the opposite side. Are you anticipating getting to anything from Miami, or is it just sort of like Bam, Hero, Butler, if they show up in scattered lineups, that's all you're really seeing?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. The prices have come up a bit on those guys because of Butler just like choosing not to play basketball so frequently. So even though it is a really good matchup, it's just tough because, yeah, you can be different by playing Bam at 8,700, but you can be just as different by paying 1,300 less for Vooch or, like 2,000 less for other guys, Claxton or Turner or Nurkic, guys like that. So that makes it tough. And then, you have Butler and Hero even more expensive. So I don't plan on getting much here. One other non-related thing, Obi Toppin is in for New York. So not ideal for Julius Randle's minutes.
No, I think that probably just brings Randle back down to his normal, like 34 to 36,
yes.
And Toppin gets the opposite side. I don't think it matters to anybody else for the Knicks.
Yeah, it shouldn't matter to anybody else. Like, I don't think they're going to run Toppin at the 3 and use him to soak up some RJ Barrett minutes. They have in the past, I'm pretty sure, occasionally, but I don't think it's the norm.
Okay. Well, the Lakers side of this one is a little bit different now that LeBron isn't playing. We have Wendy and Gabriel projected for 30% ownership across both sites, 3,200 on DraftKings, 3,800 on FanDuel. Westbrook now pulling a little bit more ownership across both sites. Austin Reeves is pretty heavily owned on the FanDuel side and on the DraftKings side. Troy Brown getting some love across, well, on FanDuel at least, probably should be on DraftKings. These guys are sort of like mildly interesting now instead of a complete cross off like they were before.
Yeah, for sure. Gabriel's pulling 31% on DraftKings, 3,200 power forward center eligible. Should get decent run here. I mean, it's still the Lakers. Like, they can still do stuff that just screws you up, but
yes,
that is a good price tag. Westbrook, 7,600, pulling 15%. I think that makes sense. Like, if they do somehow keep this game competitive, it probably is Westbrook throwing up a triple-double. The ceiling is massive, and that is pretty reasonable ownership. Again, it's a situation where, like, I don't think he's 15-1 favored over, like, D'Angelo Russell, but he's also probably not a 2-1 dog to Jalen Brunson either. So I think the ownership on Westbrook is pretty much correct. Austin Reeves at 4,300 is kind of lineup filler, like last guy in. Very similar to McDaniels, where he's not as good a point per minute guy as McDaniels, but shooting guard, small forward eligible, 4,300. There's just not a lot of those guys that look decent on tonight's slate. Like there is, these mid-range point guards, expensive guys, centers. So I think the positional eligibility on Reeves is just why you're seeing some ownership there.
Devin Vassell out, by the way.
Okay.
Not sure how that's going to actually matter, but
yeah, I mean, the Spurs were already cheap, and now Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones in particular should look better. I don't think it moves them into like priority territory, but I do think it makes them certainly look better than it did.
Anything else you want to touch on specifically for the Lakers? It's kind of hard to talk about it because obviously we don't have a starting lineup yet either. But there's just going to be a lot of value here if you're willing to attach yourself to it. And no matter what it comes out as, you're probably going to have enough pivots given that there are 3 games locking at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
It's not like it's on an island. The Atlanta Hawks, 1-point dogs in Sacramento, 245 total. This is quite the late night hammer for Atlanta. We have no Clint Capella, and then we kind of have everybody else. Not a ton of ownership coming in here. Trae Young at 9% on DraftKings is the high mark for the Hawks. 11% for John Collins on FanDuel is the high mark there. I'm just happy to have pieces of Atlanta. To me, no priorities. I do like DeJounte Murray the most of anybody that I'm looking at for Atlanta, but this game environment is just a really good one to target, particularly at low ownership.
Agreed. I think I actually like John Collins probably the most just because he does have power forward eligibility. And that's been the spot where you don't have quite as many good options. So 6K for John Collins looks pretty appealing. Certainly, if you can get to Trae Young or DeJounte Murray, you're happy to do that. Oneko Okongwu at 5,800 is another pivot center, off of Steven Adams that certainly can have a big game here. Should have his hands full on the defensive end, but if he can avoid foul trouble, should play enough minutes where he looks okay. But I think Collins probably actually the easiest to get to just because you don't have quite as many guys in his price range where it's just like, shit, if I play Collins, which one of them am I giving up?
What did I just do to my sheet? Okay, there we go. I am getting to Collins the most on FanDuel. I think because of exactly what you said, it's just that power forward eligibility is incredibly helpful. 6,200 for Collins there. But again, I'm just trying to get pieces of this game in general. One, if any late news pops up, I'm happy to have it and to be able to swap around. But two, I just, a 245 total is no joke. On the Sacramento side, Harrison Barnes is 13% owned. Everybody else is in single digits. On FanDuel, you get Sabonis and Fox right around 10%. But Sacramento is basically in the same situation as Atlanta for me. I'm just interested in getting to pieces of this game. Any one of these starters works for me. Happy to get to the field or at least over the field on some of these guys. I just really love the game environment.
Yeah, great game environment. The issue on DraftKings for Sabonis is just that he's center only and he's so expensive. So you have someone that if he's able to avoid foul trouble is probably playing 37 plus minutes, averages over 1.3 fantasy points per minute. But the center position is just so deep on the slate and relatively inexpensive that it makes it, I think, tough to get to a lot of Sabonis. De'Aaron Fox kind of in a similar situation. He's around a 1.15 to 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy with Sabonis. But he is $1,000 more expensive than Westbrook and Russell. He's like 1,500, 1,600 more expensive than Jalen Brunson. Then you have, other guards, obviously, you can get to as well. So I think it makes it tough to prioritize either of them. The wings clearly aren't as good from a fantasy standpoint, but they are cheaper. They are, do have positional eligibility that's a little bit more useful. Harrison Barnes pulling double-digit ownership at 4,800 makes sense. If you got to some Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter, either of those seem fine. If you want to take some shots on a $4,600 Monk and hope that he does much, 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 much better than he did last night, that's fine as well. But it's kind of just an interesting team where the guys that I actually want are really difficult to get to. And then the guys that I would be perfectly fine if I just didn't see in DFS lineups ever are actually pretty easy to get to.
12 games up, 12 games down. Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here? Turn it over to the Live Before Lock crew.
Nope.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this one. This was a marathon show and a marathon day, but we're not done yet. Live Before Lock on this stream. Coming up next, Greg Ehrenberg, Eric Lindquist, breaking it all down for you all the way up till 7 p.m. Thank you, No House Advantage. We're out of here. Peace.
Yo, we are back from the holidays. Happy New Year's, everyone, and a very happy New Year's to everyone that's about to get inducted into the Hall of Fame here and get their free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $120 value. You want to get involved? You want to get up here, inducted into the Hall of Fame, have us do all the bragging for you, and get a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum? Easy. All you do, go to stokastic.com/avatar. Download the profile picture. Use it wherever you play. Then tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Boom. Free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You're in and you're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Or you can come on back and we'll do it again. Let's see who we got on the board this week. Some huge winners. First up, That's Stunner. This guy just crushes all the time. Actually tweeted from our handle. Great call by Ty Schmidt using the boomer bust tool to identify Donovan Mitchell as a strong option in NBA last night. Looks like a lot of people listened. Yeah, 100K first, second, 30K, third, 10K, fifth, 3K. And then a Stokastic avatar sitting right there. Wicked Mumbles in 4th place as well. Follow that up with the 4-point play. You got That Stunner at 15K and Wicked Mumbles second with 62.50. Big night for those two fellas rocking the Stokastic and the old school Awesemo avatar as well. Logan Grew. Luka is a god, just like the guys behind the Stokastic projections. Also, shout out to the analysis, great analysis from the best today. Thanks, guys. $20,000 win to Logan Grew, rocking the new Stokastic avatar. Looks good, man. Congratulations. And then Scott Vetter, very simple man, at Stokastic HOF, $15,000 win and the $150,000 fair catch, followed up by Wayne Hoggs. How about Wayne? 10,000 third place. Took down my first NBA top 3. I'll snag that free membership indeed. Laffy, ship my money. Thanks for all you boys do. No, man, thanks to you. Appreciate it and congratulations. And then Lord Malachi. Been watching content since 2020 bubble season. Picked up a PGA, MMA, NASCAR win, along with MLB, NBA, and NFL. Appreciate you guys a ton for what you do. Mama, I'm in the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted, brother. And how about this from Lord Malachi? What a sweet thought here. Special shout out to my guy, Josh Engleman. Positive energy and thoughts your way. Josh is back, baby. Josh Engleman's back in the house. Colin Crampton, not a top 3, but hopefully still Hall of Fame worthy. Huge night thanks to the rare Awesemo DFS sighting on NBA Live Before Lock. He was with us on Friday night, and I'm glad to see that helped out old Plubert here with a $10,000 win. We got a lot today. Zach McMurray, what a way to start out the new year. Binks in 2 different contests. Shout out to the boys over at Stokastic. Best advice and tools in the DFS industry. Thanks, man, and congrats. 3,000, 3,500 in the shot, and then in the 2 different Sunday shots. Love to see it. Juan. How about Juan? Sorry, a few days late. Didn't know you were giving out free membership. Yes, we are. Just got to meet the requirements and rock that avatar like you're doing. You guys are the best. He says $1,000. Little 4-check hockey action. Congrats, Juan. And then can't say that name up top. We'll go to Hugo Seth, 68, because that would be uncomfortable. $1,000 win here in the 15K single back. Shout out to Stokastic and the YouTube squad for turning my Washington into a Cleveland. I even made a Twitter for you folks. Congrats, man. Next up, you got Jerry. All right, Jerry, popped my NBA cherry last night. Super proud DFS moment. Thanks for all the awesome daily content. $1,000 in the mini max. Love it. First place to Jerry and Eric Johnston. Great resources as always. $875 going to him in the Friday windmill. A few more here before we wrap it up. You got Sammy Z. Shout out to Stokastic for the win. $500 victory there. Congrats, brother. And then Olimar. Looking forward to that free premium month to take my game to the next level. That's why we do it, dude. Appreciate the team for all the provided insight to make us better players. 400, 250, first, second, and fifth in the piggy bank. Man, those are difficult to get that high. Huge fields. Congrats, man. And Melissa, over on Prize Picks. You know all about Prize Picks. An incredibly nice way to end 2022. Thanks for the projection, Stokastic. Use the $20 risk-free bet. Beautiful. Melissa closes it out. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. Welcome to everyone who's inducted into the Hall of Fame for the first time. Welcome back if you've been here before. Remember, go to stokastic.com/avatar. Down that. Use it wherever you play.
Yeah, no. We know what's up, though. Eric's neighbor's got it like that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock show for today. We are sponsored by No House Advantage, or is it BetMGM? I just realized that I messed up my my thing here.
NHA,
all right, we're sponsored by NHA today. This is one. So I'm starting first I have to make sure that I make fun of Eric right before the show starts. That is first and foremost. And then I look up and my browser crashes. So I didn't have my run sheet in front of me. I have to pull the chat back up because that was closed. But we've got an NBA show to talk about. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Jordan, you could go take your piss now. You're good. You can go. There we go. All right. Jordan had to go use the potty. So we're good. That's all taken care of. More importantly for today's slate, we've already got injury news coming in. Joel Embiid out, LeBron James also out. These are going to be the two most important pieces of injury news that we have to talk about today. But let's talk about the Joel Embiid one, Eric. That's the one that's happened most recently. What does this do to the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well, I think they're more appealing.
Not Joel Embiid, though.
No, Joel Embiid's less appealing.
Yeah, he is less appealing. So here's the obvious takeaway. We like James Harden.
We do.
Right? We like James Harden. What do you make of the center situation, though? Because Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, we've seen the situation in the past play out where we've had Montrezl Harrell move into the starting lineup, but still typically it's been Paul Reed who's been more popular of the two and has also put up some better fantasy performances. So what is going to be your lean with how you're going to handle the centers for the 76ers without Joel Embiid playing?
Yeah, we talked about this 2 days ago because we had a questionable Joel Embiid pops up, and now we're getting exactly what we talked about the other day. I like Paul Reed. I like Paul Reed a lot. I hope he doesn't start. That's going to make life a lot easier for us. I think we'll still probably get the Montrezl Harrell starting piece. That's what I'm assuming. And then you just play some Paul Reed anyway because it becomes a hot hand approach. I think it could go really either way, and people like to play the guy who's starting. It is a massive slate, so this makes it a little less appealing than it would have been. I mean, 2 days ago was a pretty massive slate here too, but there's just something to be said about getting to a guy who's a flat 3K on a slate like this, where you have Giannis, you have Harden. Those are two spend ups I think a majority of us want to get to. Paul Reed helps you achieve it a lot more so than Montrezl Harrell, and I think that hot hand approach, when you're talking about tournament winning upside, I think he can bring it for you if he plays 24 minutes. There's an opportunity to just smash. So that's what I'm looking at.
And the ownership isn't exactly through the roof either. Don't get me wrong. He's popular, but Paul Reed, 26% owned, at least his ownership projection at the moment. Montrezl Harrell only projected for 5% ownership at 4,200. I think that the field overlooking him a little bit. That is for DraftKings purposes. We move over to FanDuel and talk about it there. Montrezl Harrell, actually the more popular of the two, where he is projected for 28% ownership on FanDuel, whereas Paul Reed is projected for 16% ownership. Here's the difference. On FanDuel, Montrezl Harrell is cheaper. On DraftKings, Paul Reed is cheaper, and he's also the flat min. So that's what's driving a lot of the ownership there. For DraftKings, points per dollar, I do agree Paul Reed is the better option. For FanDuel purposes, though, where Paul Reed is 4,100, Montrezl Harrell's 4,000, and Harrell's picking up more ownership, what do you make of the difference between them on FanDuel as compared to DraftKings?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm playing 3 big lineups on FanDuel in that main contest that they have going, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to be choosing my center spots. Thomas Bryant pulling quite a bit of ownership too. I think he makes sense. I thought Alperen Sengun was somebody that I would be landing on to now. Obviously, with Mo Bamba existing there, that's going to be a tough one to get away from as well. I think with Montrezl Harrell, he just makes more sense because he gives you so much opportunity to get to Harden, get to Giannis, do all the things you want to on FanDuel. But is it necessary? Like, we've seen softer pricing over there. And if you get 23 minutes of Montrezl Harrell at 4K with a 0.94 fantasy point per minute rate over there, I still like getting to Paul Reed more for $100 more just because of what that tournament winning upside is. Like, it would take 28 to 20 minutes of Montrezl Harrell at these current rates for me to feel like I made a mistake by playing, the lower owned Paul Reed. Like, it would take a pretty large difference between the 2 minutes. So at their current ownerships, I still prefer Paul Reed on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think that is a reasonable way to look at it, especially from a standpoint of, if you're looking at on FanDuel at least, Paul Reed's also half the ownership of Montrezl Harrell. So a little bit of leverage to be had
too. Yep.
Yeah, so a little bit of leverage to be had. And I do agree with you that if this was to be a dead split, 24 minutes, I would favor Paul Reed. He's the better fantasy producer of the two. Not to mention also, assuming Montrezl Harrell starts, Paul Reed's going to be running with the second unit where he gets to face easier competition, more usage available. But that also brings me to the other thing that I am not sure what to make of from the Philadelphia 76ers. And I want to know what your take on it is. So the word we got out of Glenn Rivers before is that Tyrese Maxey could start, could come off the bench, could start. He's also going to have his minutes restriction raised, unspecified number. Glenn doesn't spare us those kind of details. But is this somebody who you're interested in large field tournaments? Because we know the kind of upside Maxey has when he's unlimited, but it's really hard to know what his minutes are going to look like.
Yeah. If he falls in some large field stuff, he's not going to fall into one of my 3 major lineups on FanDuel. On DK, I'm building out 50 lineups over there. Maybe he falls into one, but I doubt it. It doesn't feel like something that you need to make a thing. We have some Lakers pieces that are really, really appealing. We'll be able to play the late swap game if anything changes as we get closer to lock there. Specifically, I think the biggest piece of news that we're sitting waiting on, just knowing exactly what that starting lineup is going to be for the Lakers. I think that's something that I have some questions about what it could be. And as a result, I'm going to just get a lot of that game and kind of have that be my salary savings. Do I need to try to force something from the early window, the very first game of somebody that at 7,300 on DK just doesn't project out well on FanDuel? His tag, again, I didn't even remotely consider playing him over on FanDuel today. 7K. I just can't do it today. I can't do it.
What do you think is the ceiling for his minutes?
I would be very, very surprised if he played more than 32.
I have a gut feeling he's just going to end up being on. I have a feeling we're going to end up seeing him start, and then he's just going to be unrestricted.
That would be the worst thing of all time.
Just kind of a gut feeling.
I mean, hey, here's the thing. These are the kind of things that can win you a tournament, making decisions on that. He's pulling no ownership. We don't have the starting lineup. There's 46 minutes to go. It's a massive slate. I don't completely hate the thinking of it. And partially, anytime I have pushback on stuff like this, it's because I'm using logic and projections. Sometimes you got to go against that and understand the history and track record we have of Glenn Rivers being a damn dirty liar. So I think that's part of what you're assuming. It's where some of the basketball intellect can really help you alongside the projection-based decisions. So even just kind of thinking through it a little bit, maybe on FanDuel, I add a couple lineups and I throw them in at 7K there.
So the other thing I'll add too is just how quickly his minutes have esculated. So first game back, 19
9-minute difference,
Tyrese
8 minutes difference.
Yeah, he went from 19 to 27. That's a really big jump. By the way, I'm not saying that this is how it should be projected. I just think it's within the realm of outcomes. One thing that is really hard about projections is you're only applying 1 minute set. you're making one assumption about how many minutes everybody plays, and it makes a massive difference on the projection of that player and every other player on the team. I just think there's a wide range of outcomes here. And given that he's 0.3 and 0.1% owned on FanDuel and DraftKings, here's how I like to think of it. The odds of him going for a normal minutes allotment are way more than what his ownership is and is not representative of what his upside is. So in tournaments, I think that he's a large field tournament play that has upside that makes sense. Don't feel comfortable about it. Would never consider him in cash games, but that's why for tournaments, I think that there's a good case for him.
Yep. I honestly, talking through it, I don't completely hate it. And it's not like a groupthink thing. It's more of like, we have precedents of Glenn Rivers not being exactly honest with the world. We call him Glenn Rivers for a reason.
What's his name?
Yeah. Say my name. I'm pretty sure if you made me pick a team where I'm like, all right, out of the middle of nowhere, he'll play 36 minutes, I would pick the 76ers. Like, for any random player, third game back from a major injury that they were out for months for, like, this would be kind of the team where you would see that. And there's kind of a necessity, like, you want to continue this momentum. Philadelphia's looked pretty good with everybody back. And now Joel Embiid getting the night off in a spot where they still should be pretty sizable favorites here. They're still at 5 points. So I feel pretty good about Tyrese Maxey having an opportunity to go out and score. It's just, for me, a minutes thing. And so I like your logic there and you're thinking about it. Once again, I don't think he would be somebody that would show up in like a main 3 max kind of a capacity for me. So if everybody's out there listening, like, that would be your largest field kind of tournament play where you want to mix him in. He could certainly play 30 minutes. I don't think that after 27 minutes, 30 is not out of play. 32, 34 at 7K, you're really going to want him at that point. So I like your thinking about it.
Yeah. And by the way, my answer to the question you had posed before in terms of which player or which team would I assume would be the most likely to have a player just randomly see a massive influx of minutes coming back from an injury, the answer is the Toronto Raptors. I don't even think Nick, like, none of that.
Well, we assume that. That's the thing. It's not like a mystery like that.
Fair.
I'm talking about like shrouded in mystery. The Sixers would be it. Nick Nurse, he has no regard for human life.
Absolutely none whatsoever. Anything else we should be talking about or thinking about when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers?
I recommended rostering a dead guy. I don't understand what that means. No idea what that means. People in chat, you're weird. I don't understand the context. It's very strange.
Yeah.
Surely
like
did not happen.
Yeah, it's not like he's telling us to roster like Len Bias or something. I don't.
People are weird. Let's continue on with our lives. Here we go.
We got a super chat from Zachary Arak-Hellion. He wants to know, for a FanDuel single entry, Trey, Tobias Harris, and Nurkic, or DeJounte Murray, Kevin Durant, and Paul Reed.
There's a lot going on there.
No, sorry, what's that?
There's a lot going on there. I'm looking on FanDuel. Like, Tobias Harris is a piece I really like. He's popular. He's cheap. He's at small forward, power forward. It makes sense. Because again, you're removing 3 pieces and another 3. This is a massive slate. We have a 12 game slate before us. When you start asking these kind of pieces, it's so hard to be able to go back and forth. I can tell you exactly which one I project for more, and that is going to be the Trey, Tobias, Nurk side. But I mean, you have to consider ownership. You have to consider a lot of things that are hard. On a 12 gamer, you don't have to think about ownership nearly as much. But when you see Tobias Harris on one side of it, that's going to be really, really popular on FanDuel. We talked about Reed being lower owned. Nurk, I think people have a little bit of concern still as far as like what that role is. Can he close basketball games routinely for this team? It's just been a weird year for Nurkic when the Portland Trailblazers have been at full strength. I assume having Rudy Gobert out there is probably going to help out, but we'll see. I probably slightly lean the first one.
Yeah, and Jordan just threw the ownership up on the screen right now so you guys could see what we're looking at in terms of FanDuel and DraftKings in terms of ownership. The most popular players on FanDuel, which was just on screen. Jalen Brunson, 36% owned at 7,500 on FanDuel. Montrezl Harrell, we just got a fresh ownership update. Montrezl Harrell up to 34% on FanDuel. Wendell Carter Jr., 33%. Najee Marshall, 30%. Trey Murphy, also 30%. Those are your 5 most popular plays on FanDuel. DraftKings, the most popular players. Steven Adams at 46%, Jalen Brunson at 34%, Wenyen Gabriel up to 30%, Cole Anthony 23%, and then Jalen McDaniels at 23%. So those are your most popular players on FanDuel and on DraftKings. If you guys want a 5-day free trial to all the tools we have over at Stokastic.com, there's a link below in the description box that you could use. But if you want 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, there's a great BetMGM deal we have that comes with a great BetMGM graphic. So when you sign up at BetMGM by using our link, you're going to get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000. You're going to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and you're going to get this reaction out of Eric. Every time you sign up, that's what Eric does. He gets so excited. Do it again. Do the pose. Yeah, look at him. He's absolutely thrilled. If you guys want to keep Eric as happy as he is right now, sign up at BetMGM by using our link. 2 free months Stokastic Plus Platinum, player projections, ownership projections, Boom Bust Tool, our new lineup generator, where you could take 20 seconds to build your lineups. And you build up to 20 of them. And right from there, you upload it right into FanDuel or DraftKings. And it is lineups that, based on our simulations, we are expecting to be finishing towards the top of GPPs over the long course of time. So definitely a profitable tool for somebody who is either short on time, or if you're a new DFS player and just want to get plus EV lineups built for you. Now, Eric, let's talk about the Los Angeles Lakers, because we were just talking about some of those DK ownership percentages. And one thing that does stand out there is that Wenyen Gabriel is massively popular today on DraftKings, 3rd most popular player on the slate at 30% owned. Who stands out to you as the best options from the Lakers now that we do not have LeBron playing tonight?
Yeah, this is what I've spent most of my time figuring out exactly what we're going to anticipate from it. Russell Westbrook being upgraded to probable changed really what I thought would be a ton of value getting there. But Thomas Bryant, I think on FanDuel, he's now at 5.5%. We're seeing everybody jump ship and go to Philadelphia. I'm going to be happy to sit and wait. I think with 3 games in that late night window at 10 p.m. Eastern time, one of my major 3, I'm going to play some Thomas Bryant. He's been popular in the last couple slates in a way where I didn't necessarily think it was always warranted. But this is kind of the spot where you see the ownership that Steven Adams is pulling over on DraftKings right now. You see Paul Reed moving up the board, where there is definitely minutes volatility that I'm happy to admit. Even just, talking through it, it's like I prefer him over Montrezl Harrell, but I can't say that I just think Paul Reed is this automatic smash. It's pretty volatile. I like getting to him in large field tournaments. So like Thomas Bryant, pretty locked into that role. If he can stay out of foul trouble, there should be an opportunity against Bam Adebayo in Miami to be on the floor a lot. Now, Patrick Beverley at 5,300 on FanDuel, I don't think I have to think about, but Russell Westbrook is such a big part of what I'm doing right now. And it's really, really freaky, but I think he's coming in pretty under-owned over on DraftKings right now at 7,600. He's right now at 11% ownership. And this is a dude that if he ends up starting and playing this basketball game for 36 minutes, 38 minutes, he could do that even coming off the bench. So I guess it's not a major deterrent. I would like to see him start here, but I mean, there is massive upside for him to just go out and try to do all the things he can do to win a basketball game. I think that does affect some of the other pieces. Now, if he doesn't start, who would you find to be pretty appealing there? I mean, you could look at Kendrick Nunn as an opportunity, which I've never said out loud on these shows. Dennis Schroeder stands out in terms of at his ownership, 2% right now on DraftKings at 4,900. I like him in tournaments more than I like Patrick Beverley. So, I mean, it's just a really wonky spot. I'm going to have to react to what that to whatever that starting lineup is for what I want to do in tournaments. But FanDuel, Russell Westbrook, 7,800. I am way high on him.
And then by the way, I do think he ultimately comes off the bench, but it doesn't really change too much about his outlook. He's come off the bench the entire year. And even other spots where we've seen LeBron and Anthony Davis both out, we've still seen Westbrook come off the bench, and there is some upside there. He's played considerably better this year than last year. I'm going to also be a little bit overweight to the field on him, but not necessarily going crazy with Westbrook. The 10% ownership, like I said, the number that I like being overweight to the field to on DraftKings. FanDuel right now, we have Westbrook projected for 11% ownership. I don't think he plays 36 minutes or anything like that. But at the same time, too, I think he should play enough to give himself a ceiling. There's triple-double upside there. So not a guy who's going to be in like half my lineups or anything like that. But I do agree with you. I think he warrants being a little bit overweight to the field. But how aggressive are you thinking about getting with Westbrook?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody that's going to show up in more than half of my lineups today. Maybe Jalen Brunson on DK, but I can't imagine a spot where I'm going to be getting to that much of a player. Just looking at the top end of this, I mean, we have a 12-game slate, and I would call a lot of the value outside of Cole Anthony that's just shorthanded, and Orlando looking at some of the spots there. Wendell Carter Jr., if we end up seeing no minutes limitation there, which is what the word is, he's an absolute smash at that kind of a tag. No Franz Wagner, it just looks good to me. Like Steven Adams, I'm not going to play in 50% of my lineups, and he's a play I really, really liked coming into today. I cannot believe how popular he is on DraftKings. I mean, any play I'm talking about is somebody that's going to be muted compared to what we've had on a couple of these slates of late, where you just land on a bunch of like yesterday, Trey Mann being 35% of lineups on a 3-gamer, stuff like that. It's like, I don't find that to kind of be what it is, but I'm definitely going to have north of 20% Russell Westbrook. That's double the field. That feels like somebody that I want to kind of highlight.
Yeah. Anything else from the Lakers here?
I think Wenyen Gabriel is terrible chalk. He's 3,800 on FanDuel. I get it. He gives you a lot of access to things, but what do you find that minute ceiling to be? Like, even if you get 28 out of him, like 28 out of him is not going to necessarily get it done on a 12-game slate. When you're talking about how good the mid-range can be, I am more than willing to completely fade on FanDuel Wenyen Gabriel, let 25, 30% maybe in the $150, like maybe a bunch of people just end up playing him and it ends up being a popular piece I have to fade. But like, I feel really good playing just about everybody else at a power forward position and not Wenyen Gabriel, who can only be played at one position, 3,800. It just feels like a really, really yucky piece of chalk. 3,200 on DraftKings. I think you can talk about it. Completely different multi-positional eligibility. Sure. But on FanDuel, what are we doing here?
I'm going to look up right now. Has he even played minutes with...
He's played a couple games late 20s, but yeah, he has not played a lot of minutes with Thomas Bryant.
Okay. So here's what I was looking for.
Backup center.
They've played 66 minutes together this year over the course of the entire season. So opportunity for them to play, maybe a couple minutes together. But by and large part, I don't think there's going to be that much overlap between them. And I think it's kind of hard to give massive minutes to Wenyen Gabriel unless you're taking minutes away from Thomas Bryant. And I don't really think that is going to happen either. So it's hard for me to project him for a lot of minutes with that in mind.
Yeah, he's a terrible... I think one of the things I get in the habit of too is like, I don't have like this many. I find the chalk to be pretty bad today. Like I will say, I think it's very volatile. I think there's a lot of great pivots. I mean, shit, you just laid out a really good case for a guy who was like pulling 1% ownership a second ago. Let me refresh and see if that's still the case. But like, that's the kind of slate you have where you don't need to get terribly off the board sometimes. Like there's a good mid-range that exists, like Banchero, pretty phenomenal play. CJ McCollum, pretty phenomenal play. We're not talking about guys who are 10K, 11K, or guys who are 3, 4K. Like we're talking about 8K mid-range. You should be jamming a lot of these dudes into the lineups. And it's kind of ironic because I feel like on a lot of these slates, we've had a Luka Doncic where we've had somebody to pay up for. And of course, I like Giannis, but even on FanDuel, I don't find him like a necessity because of how good this mid-range is. And it just seems like people are forcing in plays that are just weird to me. Wenyen Gabriel, really bad chalk. Jabari Smith at 5K pulling a ton of ownership earlier. We'll see if it ends up coming back a little bit to the top of the pool there. We're looking at Gary Harris, which makes 0 sense to me that he is pulling 15% ownership on FanDuel. I get it. They're shorthanded and things, but we're talking about one of the worst fantasy point per minute guys. Get in that mid-range, play a lot of the good plays, and stay away from some of this volatile chalk just to get to Giannis. You don't need it.
And we just got a question in our Discord channel. Strickstein71 wants to know, how much Giannis are you getting to? So first, I'm going to say my preferred pay-up option on this slate is James Harden. And it doesn't mean that I'm not playing Giannis. I have 25% of Giannis right now. But that's not wildly different from the field. I'm a little bit overweight to Giannis right now based on his DK ownership. He's projected for, let me refresh. He was projected for 17% ownership. So I think it's a number worth being, 17.8%. But Harden to me is going crazy under 17.4% for Harden on DraftKings. FanDuel is projected for 11%. That is the most under-owned player of the entire slate, in my opinion. I mean, Harden should crush without Joel Embiid out there. And it's a great matchup against the Indiana Pacers. To me, Harden should be the most popular player on the entire slate. So I think that the preferred pay-up option for me is Harden. I'm going to have I'm sure some lineups that'll have both Harden and Giannis in them, but it's not like there's so many min price plays that I have the ability to get to Harden and Giannis in all of my lineups together. So my preference is Harden. That does somewhat limit the amount of Giannis I get to.
Sunflower, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying I understand why the people are talking about Gary Harris, but I'm saying that my thing is that he's a terrible fantasy point per minute player, somebody that routinely has not been a focal point on the offensive end for this basketball team. And even with everybody healthy, even with everybody out, it hasn't really mattered for me. Gary Harris is just a bad play at 15% on FanDuel. It just makes no damn sense. Look at his projection at the moment. Like that's what I'm getting at. I was trying to amend why it is that I understand the ownership's there, but it's still a terrible play.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Terrence Ross the other day a little bit.
Horrible play. Terrence Ross. And I saw there's some smart people that I really, really like. Holy shit. See, Glenn Rivers is the absolute stone cold worst.
All right. So we just got the starting
stone
lineup.
Cold worst.
I kind of like this starting lineup, actually.
It's good because I don't have to take any shots on it other than Paul Reed. Like I'm just going to play Paul Reed. And then I'm going to play Maxey. I'm with you there. I think Maxey starting goes into consideration immediately. And James Harden, the best play on the slate. Just at the top end. Best play on the slate.
Any concerns about Paul Reed now that we got this as the starting lineup, though?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, you're basically just hoping that he's the guy who gets the backup center minutes and not Montrezl Harrell. I am going to be lower on the field than just about everybody. I mean, Montrezl Harrell, we assumed was going to be the starter. Don't assume that. He's not. So here we go. We don't have to try to take a shot on either of them necessarily. But if I did, I would take it on Paul Reed because if he gets the minutes, he can actually smash. Whereas like Montrezl Harrell, he would need 28 minutes off the bench for me to feel good about that play.
So I'm going to be curious to see what the field does with this because none of us expected Paul Reed to start, right? Everybody was anticipating that Montrezl Harrell was going to be the starter. So I think a lot of people are going to see Paul Reed not starting and think, okay, I didn't think he was going to start. I'm not going to change anything. I still think Harrell's ahead of Paul Reed in the rotation. I think this makes both of them somewhat unappealing. I agree with you. If I have to pick one of them, it's going to be Paul Reed because he's the better fantasy producer. Unless his ownership changes, I imagine I'm going to be underweight to the field to him in tournaments now, though.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's no question. Gary Payton ruled out. Doesn't do a whole lot. He played 17 minutes or 13 minutes the other night. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not going to really make a difference. Anything else that stands out to you about this Philadelphia starting lineup?
I mean, it's a really, really good thing for James Harden and Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris, like your three main guys that you wanted to be playing of. Put PJ Tucker out there as opposed to Paul Reed or Montrezl Harrell, and yay. I'm going to bump their projections even a little bit more. I was already getting to tons. I bet I get to tons more. Specifically Harden and Harris.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily think it helps those guys just because we've now got Maxey starting. He's going to be somebody who definitely now requires extra usage. Maxey starting as opposed to, say, Montrezl Harrell, pretty big usage difference.
Right, but I'm saying PJ Tucker and, you start talking about, it's just, let me just look at it one more time, just thinking about it. Because
what we were expecting before was the same
Tucker
starting lineup, but Harrell instead of Maxey.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I was thinking about the fact that if we were going to play Maxey, he was always going to be starting. So that was still an assumption I was rolling with. The Melton piece, I thought it could go Harris Tucker and then center. I thought that was the most likely outcome. Melton off the bench. Why wouldn't you want Melton? Why wouldn't you want Melton off the bench if you're going to start Maxey?
Because I think they're just going to play their starters a ton of minutes. Anyway.
Yeah, they are. It's true. Do you like Melton at all?
No, it's because his price has gone up. Now, he's $5,900 on DraftKings.
Pretty popular.
FanDuel Melton is $6,100. I'll have to rerun my lineups, but I think to me, the prices, I have him now for 31.5 fantasy points. It's acceptable at his price point. I just think there's better points per dollar plays with the amount of options we got.
Yeah. There absolutely are. I was just curious because he was a guy who was pulling ownership. I wasn't really getting to, but now that he's starting, because again, I was assuming he wasn't. Now that he is starting, There you go. I thought it could be if Maxey jumps into the starting rotation, you take Melton out and you put a center out there, but they did not do that. PJ Tucker, here you are.
Let's answer some super chats and some questions in our Discord channel. I think we've hit on the two most important pieces of news that are shaping a lot of lineups today, both the Lakers and then, of course, the Philadelphia 76ers there. Now, Jake Lindland wants to know, for DK, he loves his lineup. He doesn't like it. He loves it. He has $6,400 left for the forward spot. Send help. All right, so 6,400. Who do I have projected the highest? Off the top of my head, I feel like that's Tobias Harris, but I'll have to look at the projection.
Yeah, that's a freebie. Tobias Harris on DK. Done.
Yeah, Tobias Harris. That is the answer. The next question. It is a tiers question from our guy Rosso Music. Paulo Banchero, Westbrook, or D'Angelo Russell for today. I have Banchero projected the highest of those three.
I have Banchero the highest, but Russell Westbrook, we talked about the triple-double upside, and I don't know what that ownership is. He had a Q tag next to his name, even though he got upgraded to probable from questionable. So I don't understand. Maybe sometimes in tiers, that stuff kind of ended up mattering if people are just hand building a bunch, and some top players aren't exactly entering 150 and stuff in that. So I would assume Russell Westbrook ends up lower owned than Paulo Banchero, but I'm not looking at the tiers ownership. But yeah, same thing. Paulo would be my highest owned.
Next question we have is from my filler arc, Trey Murphy III. Or Jalen McDaniels on DK.
I've been such a stan for Trey Murphy. I had the huge day last year with him where, got him at like 2-3% and he puts up a bazillion points and wins a bunch of tournaments for me, but and everybody else on the live before lock. But I haven't been getting to him a lot at these kind of ownerships without everybody there. Now, no Zion, it's a little bit of a different situation, but he's another piece where he's very volatile, very shooting and scoring dependent. And the usage has been very, very down. Like the rebound rate's been okay, but like you're hoping he goes out and just chucks it in some of these spots. And even absent some of these pieces, we haven't seen that usage really trail above 20% since December 2nd. He hasn't achieved 20% usage in a game. So I'm a little bit concerned. That's another piece of volatile chalk that I'm just not getting to today. So I'll go the other side. Jalen McDaniels.
I also prefer McDaniels. I think both of them are, number one, I think they're both strong cash considerations. I think they're both guys who are worth having in your player pool, but I'm getting to more McDaniels, so that is going to be my answer there. The next question that we have is from Zolo Baxter, who wants to know, how do you guys feel about Dame tonight for a DK single entry GPP? Too many other pay up options I prioritize. You're only playing one lineup today. To me, it's Harden is priority number one as a pay up. Priority number two is Giannis. Dame is not somebody I'd play in single entry.
Yeah, I wouldn't get to him in single entry. Was this FanDuel or DraftKings?
DraftKings.
Okay, because on FanDuel, he's a priority play at 9,200 in that game environment in that spot. Like that's a lot different. But on DK, yeah, there's just so many guys to be paying up for, and James Harden is by far my favorite.
The next question is from John Addy. The Horford play last night was amazing. Thanks. Yeah, Horford absolutely sucked yesterday.
Yeah, he was awful. Luckily, I didn't really get to a lot. I think I tempered off a lot of my Al Horford interest as we got closer to lock and throughout the day. He was a guy that I talked about as prop yesterday on the Lindy's Leans Likes Locks, and I ended up just not playing it. The only exposure I had to any prop was Sacramento, Utah. Sacramento plus 3.5, Fox over 20.5, over PRA, and over 20.5 for Domantas Sabonis. That worked out very, very nicely. Felt like everybody and their dog was on that looking at Twitter today, but still, Al Horford, yeah, that was terrible. Enjoy tomorrow where Robert Williams is back, and then Al Horford will, of course, go for 40.
Zolo Baxter, another question. He's getting Jaren Jackson Jr. and Gary Trent Jr. a lot in builds. Are they bad plays?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends what a lot means. I don't have
5%
Jaren
Gary
Trent,
Jr.
but I have less than 10%.
I have 0 Gary Trent. And I like the Gary Trent off the bench, fun to make it work kind of play once in a while because, again, he just kind of slips through the cracks on people. But he's up now to 5,500 over on DK. I don't know what to do. I mean, I think he's fine, but there's so many guys that look identical to him, and he's actually pulling almost 10%. 10% is quite a bit at that kind of a number today.
And as for Jaren Jackson Jr., it kind of similar to Gary Trent for me in my player pool, but not a priority relative to other options we have on the slate. Like the way that you're wording this, Zolo, is getting a lot of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Gary Trent. They're not guys that I think should be core plays by any means tonight.
No.
That has us caught up on the super chats, unless one just came in, which it didn't. So let's answer some of these Discord questions. By the way, if you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. The next question from T. Lee, he wants us to break down our favorite value plays. So Eric, let's you could do this for FanDuel, I could do it for DraftKings. Who are some of the cheap options that you're getting to the most?
Well, it's changed. I'm playing the 3 big lineups over there, and I was going to play some Paul Reed possibly. I was going to possibly play, some of the Philadelphia. That's just not a thing anymore. So that has gone by the wayside. Kevon Looney is a dude with power forward eligibility over on FanDuel going up against the Detroit front court. I don't think he's getting enough. Well, he is today, but he wasn't going into that Atlanta game. He ended up playing the second overtime. He didn't play the first overtime and close over Anthony Lamb, but I don't think that that's kind of a normal phenomenon. So 5,400 for Kevon Looney makes a lot of sense for me. I really like that kind of a play over on FanDuel. I understand center is very, very valuable, but because he has that power forward eligibility, I think that is extremely important. Tobias Harris isn't really considered like value, but he kind of is. You're looking at 6,300 for a guy that small forward, power forward eligibility makes all the sense in all the land. And then I've talked about how much I have a disdain for some of these cheaper guys. So I'm not really getting down to like the 4K range anywhere. It is a lot of like the mid 5Ks. I have like 0 Pat Connaughton. I saw he was kind of an optimizer special, somebody that I played the other night. I just have 0 interest to play him now that he's actually pulling any kind of ownership. Jabari Smith at 5K is about as low as I have any exposure to. So take that for what you will.
For me, and I'm still updating some lineups, but the players that for cheap, I think make the most sense on DraftKings. One of them is Jalen McDaniels, we talked a little bit about before. And then another one that I like getting to today is Mo Bamba. And I understand that we had some good spots for Mo Bamba where he didn't really come through in recent games. He was not playing the other day, going to be back today, but no Bobo in the lineup today for the Magic. We know Bamba is a really good points per minute fantasy producer, and there's still a shit ton of guys out for the Magic because of the suspension stuff. So I think there's opportunity for Bamba to play extended minutes. He's not projected for much ownership, and I just like the upside of him. He's $4,300 on DraftKings, only projected for 7% ownership. Over on FanDuel, I know I was answering for DraftKings. FanDuel, not a value play at $5,200. But just because Wendell Carter Jr. still somewhat restricted, and then we've also got Mo Bamba kind of has to play the backup center minutes, at a cheap price on DraftKings, that's somebody I like to as a contrarian value play.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been obviously much better if he was starting, but, he's still somebody you can roll the dice on, and now the ownership has definitely come down. I think... I can't really do Paul Reed anymore. I can't really advise that at 4,100. He's still pulling ownership. Going to be very tilting when he smashes faces today. That's for sure. But the values just changed drastically on FanDuel in the last 15 minutes. I mean, there's just none of it really. Like I don't have anybody below 5K I really want to get to on this slate.
Yeah, I am going to be getting to drastically less Paul Reed now.
Yeah, 0. I have 0 Paul Reed now.
By the way, also as I'm rerunning my lineup, somebody else that's popping up a little bit more frequently for me now is Harrison Barnes.
Okay.
Barnes is at just the floor for his price on DraftKings. He's come all the way down to $4,800. And his minutes, he played 37 minutes last game against Utah. And the game before that against Memphis, he played 29 minutes, scored 27 fantasy points, 32 the game before. The minutes have been there for Harrison Barnes, and he's actually starting to make more of his shots, which he was not doing for a little while. So I think this is a pretty good buy low spot and a good matchup for Harrison Barnes. And another guy who the field is not really getting to, 13% on DraftKings at $4,800. FanDuel, once again, more expensive there at $5,500, but I don't mind him as a mid-range play. Is Barnes somebody you're getting to at all?
Yeah, Barnes is just fine by me. Not anybody that Yeah, again, 5,500 FanDuel, don't have to think about it. As far as the floor down there at DK, it's a back-to-back. Never really know what to factor in here for that. I assume Harrison Barnes, he's been in the league long enough. They're just playing him a lot of minutes here at this point in time. He's looked a lot better. It just seems like he's going to be getting that usage in the upper teens, low 20s. So feels like an all right guy. Better rebound rate than some of the other shooting dependent pieces we've been talking about. So I'm all right getting to him there. He's pulling a little bit of ownership though.
The sponsor of today's show.
You tried. That's what matters.
I did my best. I know. Gold stars. Thank you, No House Advantage, for sponsoring our program today. And when you guys sign up in No House Advantage, you're going to get up to a $50 bonus on your first deposit. And also, you can play against the house over at No House Advantage. So in the post-lock show, Eric and I, we're going to be talking a little bit about NHA. We're going to be going through some of the projections we have over at Stokastic.com and trying to find the best props to play over at No House Advantage. And we're going to have a lot of options to choose from because it is a 12-game slate. So stick around the post-lock show, and Eric and I are going to be breaking down any kind of late-breaking news, whether it's player scratch, unexpected starting lineups. We'll tilt our faces off about whatever happens in the first 4 minutes of each game, which everybody knows that is when all tournaments are decided. So stick around for the post-lock show, and also like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Some more questions that we have in the Discord channel. This one coming from ModDubT. Thoughts on Saric starting and Phoenix overall? We've seen Saric make starts this year, and it generally hasn't meant anything.
It's really, really unfun. So
also terrible matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Terrible, horrible, no good, very bad matchup. And Mobley in for that matchup, problematic.
3 starts this year for Dario Saric. This is actually kind of weird. 21 and a half minutes exactly in all 3 of those starts.
No, thanks. Not on this slate. Again, different slate. On a 3-gamer where you're trying to get to raw points of somebody or something else exists, we can have those kind of conversations. We're not having that conversation today. It's just a bad play.
And as for his fantasy point totals in those games, he did have one game where he exceeded 20 fantasy points. But by and large, it's not been great for Dario Saric. His fantasy point outcomes in those games were 11, 22, and 15, I think were the numbers. Here we go. 15, 25, and 12. All right, close enough. Not for today. I don't think we need him.
Yeah, don't do it.
As for Phoenix overall, there's nothing that really stands out to me from the Suns. Am I missing anything?
Nope.
Next question that we have is from Bloopy. FanDuel, single entry. Dame and Najee Marshall or Harden and Pat Connaughton?
I hate Pat Connaughton today. Pat Connaughton is in that bucket of like worst pieces of chalk I've ever seen in my life. So there you go.
I like Eric now calls somebody the worst piece of chalk ever at least once a show.
Well, no, I've literally just only done it this show multiple times. I don't think it's been like a trend of mine on these shows to be like, I think that this is like a bastard from Game of Thrones type piece of chalk.
There was one the other day. There was somebody who was 13% owned. He said it was the worst play he'd ever seen in your entire life. I can't remember who it was.
That. He did not do anything, I can tell you that much, because I would have heard it on Twitter. The Twitter birds coming in. Cheep, cheep, cheep.
It was Dwayne Washington.
Oh, yeah, that was horrendous chalk. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their 16 from him in 13 minutes. Hopefully that was enjoyable for you.
Once a show, Eric finds the worst play of all time.
That was fucking atrocious, though.
Favorite single entry plays, Teely wants to know. How have you done on building your lineups?
I'm doing okay. I'm about done building out my FanDuel 3 and having that finalized, and then I'll jam the DraftKings stuff. So I'm doing good.
All right. Do you want to roll through? I could say who my most roster players are position by position for DraftKings. You can do it for FanDuel.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I only have 3 lineups there, but they're, all in the small field stuff. And so, yeah, I can talk about it.
Okay.
I'll just put them into Cruncher and copy paste them and throw them in so I can tell you who I have.
Okay. So at point guard for me on DraftKings, we didn't talk about Jalen Brunson. He's chalky. I think he's a good piece of chalk today on DraftKings and only 7,000 in a matchup against the Spurs. So for me, Jalen Brunson, we talked about James Harden before. Those are my 2 most rostered point guards.
Brunson, Westbrook for me.
And then shooting guard for me, James Harden, I also like Cole Anthony for today. The Magic are shorthanded, and I don't really have an issue getting to Cole Anthony. So Cole Anthony, also James Harden for me at shooting guard. How about yourself?
Yeah, so I've got James Harden because I can play him over at the shooting guard spot. That's kind of primarily what I'm doing. And then kind of rotating between Schroeder, having a little bit of him. He's in one of my three. And then I have an Austin Reeves at 4,700 that I'm looking at here too. So interesting Laker piece of value. I imagine I'm going to allow that to change to something else if things aren't going well.
Forwards for me, and a lot of these players have small forward and power forward eligibility, so I'll just group them together. Jalen McDaniels, Harrison Barnes, and Paulo Banchero. Yeah,
Jalen McDaniels, Najee Marshall, those are pretty straightforward, easy ones. And then Trey Murphy's also there at 4,900, him and Najee. I think that's just fine to have both of them together on FanDuel.
Centers, Steven Adams, hard to not at least get some exposure to him at the center spot on DK, considering where his price point is, but Steven Adams, and then I also mentioned I like Mo Bamba a lot as a contrarian play.
Yeah, Kevon Looney, you can play a power forward. That's nifty. Paulo Banchero, you can play a power forward. That's nifty. I like Wendell Carter Jr., obviously, like everybody else does. Pretty chalky power forward position, getting a little different shooting guard, small forward.
All right, let's hit on some more.
Oh, center. We didn't talk center.
I just said.
Center. Oh, I didn't do my. I just have one play that I think is going egregiously underowned at center as we keep refreshing, and maybe he gets steamed up now that all of this is transpired. But we have a sub 10% Jonas Valanciunas with Larry Nance out. I know it's a 12-game slate. I know there's a lot of centers, but that is like a priority center play to get to. We have him projected for just 26 minutes at Stokastic today, and he's projected around 33.5 fantasy points on FanDuel, 6,600. That is a dude that I am prioritizing. I have him in 2 of my 3.
All right. I could dig that. $6,300 on DraftKings. I have some exposure to him, not like an insane amount or anything. It's always hard because you can only play so many centers, and it's always the position that has the most value by far. Yeah. But he's in my player pool. I'm overweight to him, so I don't mind that at all. TKO 730 wants to know who is the best cash play under 4K on DraftKings. He was looking at Troy Brown Jr. All right. So flex.
Box score watching.
Is that also the worst play of all time?
No, not the worst play of all time, just because there's, infinity shots to maybe put up. But he might be the worst thing I've ever heard if you're talking cash. Like legitimately, that is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through my projections and seeing who comes up sub 4K.
He had 3 steals, went 4 for 8 from 3 in order to get to just under 30. He's now up from where he was at 3,100 to 3,900. If you play him in cash, just I don't know what to tell you.
See, here's what's the player I've projected the best is Gary Harris, and I don't have lineups with him. Like there aren't that many good sub 4K plays today.
It's true.
For cash games, I guess just because he's owned, I think you just go Gary Harris there.
Yeah, I think so too. Gary Harris is fine. Again, for cash, if you're just trying to punt off a spot, there you go. Sounds great, but like we're talking tournaments for most of what we're doing here, and there's no way that I would click on Gary Harris's name today.
The next question that we have is from JEW. JEW wants to know Cole Anthony, Giannis, and Paul Reed, or McCollum, Wendell Carter Jr., and Gary Trent. I prefer McCollum, Wendell Carter Jr., and Gary Trent.
Me too. And again, Gary Trent, he's whatever, but the other 2 are slam dunks in that 2v2.
Maddie T, she wants to know, I was late and missed the Lakers breakdown on FanDuel for a large GPP. I have $3,800 for a shooting guard small forward or a power forward there. Wenyen Gabriel or Juan Toscano Anderson viable, or should I rebuild? Or is there a different $3,800 for a shooting guard small forward or power forward?
I'm not playing Wenyen Gabriel. If you land on him at power forward, that's nifty. I can't imagine there's anything from the Lakers at 3,800 that I would want to touch.
Well, it could be it could be anybody for $3,800.
Oh, got it.
You're just asking about the Lakers.
Okay. Nope. Redo it.
Redo.
Yep. Sorry. I hate to do it. 6 minutes. You have time. Just 3,800. I see nothing that I would even want to tango with there. Nothing at all.
If it had to be one, I would probably just say Wenyen Gabriel. But like you, I'm not really in love with.
If you
Wenyen
had
Gabriel.
to, Gary Harris 3,800, have fun, but I'm not doing it.
If Gabriel ends up starting, I would feel differently. I just don't think it's going to be the case. I think what's going to happen is I think we're going to see Thomas Bryant start at center because Thomas Bryant always starts at center. I think Wenyen Gabriel is going to come off the bench and probably play like 18 minutes.
Yep.
I think that's the most likely scenario. I
think it is too.
My lineups are uploaded.
Mine the next are not.
Is from it's always I always get the betting questions get mixed in with the DFS, and I'm not sure what people are asking about. You know, like because people are asking about individual players, SGA, and then I'm trying to figure out, clicking like, oh, it's a betting question. But anyway,
always fun.
Miami High Life, Paul Reed in DK cash. I wouldn't play him in cash games.
Wouldn't either.
And I'm going to refresh our ownership to see how popular he is now. I'm pretty sure it's come down. You know, if he was still like 50% owned or whatever, I would say go ahead, play him in cash game. But I mean, Paul Reed is now, he's still project for 24% ownership. If you need to play him in cash, I'm not playing Paul Reed in tournaments anymore. If you absolutely need a punt, you play him in cash just because he's so popular. But I'm definitely going to be underweight to him in tournaments.
Same seas.
24% owned in cash game overall. Would that at least make you think he's cash game viable?
Yeah, totally.
All right. The next question we have is not existing because we answered all of them. And
that's
let me see,
problematic.
Let me see to make sure that we got to the super chats here. Beer Dad B, is it too cute to play Joval and Hayes on DK? I wouldn't play them together.
I wouldn't either.
I do like Jonas Valanciunas though.
I do too. Jonas Valanciunas is my dude today. Be the king. Be the hero that Gotham deserves. The watchful protector. The Dark Knight.
Who's the Dark Knight? Other than
Jonas
Batman.
Valanciunas.
Jonas
Valanciunas. I'm just saying, yeah.
Today.
Yeah, he is. He's the watchful protector.
Jordan just sent me a message. Is it the one that I answered? Yeah. Okay. So we're good. Sir George Peelsworth in our Discord chat wants to know.
That's a great name.
Sir George Peelsworth wants to know, what are our thoughts on Miles Turner for FanDuel? So Turner on FanDuel is $7,400, project for 6% ownership. Here's the positive for Miles Turner. He has power forward eligibility on FanDuel. The matchup easier than it would appear to be on paper because there is no Joel Embiid there. Here's the flip side, though. 7,400 feels fairly close to a ceiling price for Miles Turner, and there are a lot of other big men I prefer. So given the size of the slate, that's not something I'd be prioritizing.
Same. Oh, this is going to be a sweat, Greg. You ready for a sweat?
Uh-oh, what happened?
We are having CSV issues.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Just keep getting an error message and I don't know what's going on with it. So I'm just going to put somebody who's in later into this lineup. All right. So Jeremy Sokan, he's not going to be in play for me. New York. All right. That starts in half an hour. So I can kind of know that that's the glaring omission. I'm going to export that. Oh God, this is going to be just wild.
So in terms of the early, and by the way, you need to have the early games in there. That's James Harden.
You're screwed. You're screwed otherwise.
I mean, I'm not. You might be. I'm good.
Shut up.
All right, let's root for Eric here. In the meantime, Eric, you figure that out. I could take care of these next 2 minutes on my own.
Thank you.
We just got news. Kawhi Leonard is not on the injury report for tomorrow. Actually, a little surprising. I thought Kawhi was going to sit because it is a back-to-back scenario for the Clippers. So I actually think that kind of opens up potentially interesting value on the Clippers for tomorrow. But we'll be talking more about betting in a little bit because the slate locks in about 60 seconds. But after that, it is the post-lock show. And Eric and I are not going anywhere. For 30 minutes, we're going to be looking for some of our favorite bets of the day. We're going to be looking at our sponsor, No House Advantage, some of the props you could play against the house over there. We're going to be looking for value there. And then, of course, any kind of late news that breaks in terms of any guys that are ruled out, we'll be talking about that. We don't know the Lakers starting lineup. That is something that could be really important for the slate. That could break in the next 30 minutes. And then, of course, the most important thing, we're going to freak out about whatever happens in the first 3-4 minutes of these basketball games, which is when everybody knows the entire slate is made or broken, the first 3-4 minutes of the first quarter of the first sets of games.
Oh, wow. Got it.
Out.
Thank you. Yeah, got it. That was so brutal. So I had a double. So this Jalen Williams thing is going to end my life one day. Like it's just going to. I don't have them. I don't like them, but because I had it wrong in my spreadsheet, it wouldn't upload and it kept saying error, error, error. And then I copy and pasted, but I did it for the night slate, even though it didn't exist. So I wasn't getting the numbers for the players. It was a whole cluster, but we fixed it. So good stuff.
It was a Jalen Williams issue.
It was a Jalen Williams issue. And I've had that issue a couple times, but now I have a McDaniels issue too, which is just unbelievable. Unbelievable when you get these 12 gamers and the names are just, I can't group it the way I want to.
You've got Jalen Williams with an E, Jalen Williams with an I. Both play on the same team. That's always a little
heads
bit
are
of
falling.
an issue.
Oh shit! I ended up actually getting 3% Paul Reed. Whatever. I'm just looking through 6% George Niang. What am I doing? This is so bad. Go Iowa State. I was just looking at what I had for Sixers exposure. I still got to 38% James Harden, 50% Tobias Harris, my second highest owned player on the slate on DraftKings. That is going to be uncomfortable.
I'm about to download the CSV for DraftKings. What do we think the ownership ended up being on Paul Reed?
Oh God, I'm gonna say 20%. No, in the $15, I would say 14%.
Let's see. I still have to download the CSV, and then we will know. DraftKings running very slow on my computer. Right now,
everything's running slow on my computer today.
What probably doesn't help it though is by the time we get to lock, I have a million tabs pulled up.
Yeah. I didn't play hockey today. That makes you feel better.
It makes me feel indifferent. You're an absolute sick human being.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Load fast.
I want to know Steven Adams ownership. That's what I'm the most curious about. Can we fade 25 rebounds from Steven Adams today? That'd be nifty.
What is his prop was ridiculous earlier.
16.5, I think it was.
I think it was 14.5, but plus money on the under.
Yeah, I saw 15.5 or 16.5 on Prize Picks earlier today. I don't know. That game hasn't tipped, so I think we can still probably find it. Let me take a look at No House Advantage and see if they have any Steven Adams props.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up Bet Pro right now. So one thing I should probably just be, instead of multitasking, I should be single tasking. I'm asking my computer to pull up the bets from Bet Pro while also pulling up the $15 on DraftKings and downloading the CSV. Maybe I'll just have it do one of these things at once. It'll be a little more happy with me. All right. Opening up the file for the $15 on DraftKings. What's your guess for ownership?
For Adams?
No. For Paul Reed.
14%.
Right. It's opening the file and it got stuck.
Yeah, everything. I can't even get anything to go right now.
Here we go. All right, it opened. So Steven Adams, 43.4%, the $15.
Jesus Christ.
Player. James Harden ended up being 34%, so ended up being a little more popular than we were expecting there. Paul Reed ended up being 10% owned.
Yeah.
People jumped ship on Paul Reed.
So now at 10%, you could actually be at it and I wouldn't completely hate you, but whatever.
All right.
Duke's about to go nuts. My wife's coming back.
Jalen McDaniels ended up being 31% owned, second most popular player right now. What is he? Is he in the room with you?
Yeah, he was in the room with me. Wife had a chiropractor, her back completely went out. So poor thing.
How'd that happen?
No comment.
All right. So we've got the slate about to start, and let's now start breaking down some of our favorite bets of the day. So we've got our new tool, Bet Pro, that you could look at over at Stokastic.com, and also in the link below, 7 days free trial when you guys sign up and check out Bet Pro for the first time. This is going to be the easiest way for you guys to make some money if you are new into sports betting, because it's just based on our projections, our simulations. We've got projected odds for each individual prop to go over or under their mark. But in addition to that, we've also got a percentage that you should be betting of your bankroll on each of these individual props based on our algorithm. So lots of cool stuff going on over at Bet Pro, and 1 week free trial by clicking on the link below and signing up. But also, all different sports books here. So you can see the overall best bets. You can sort it by BetMGM, by Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuel, PointsBet, and then, of course, No House Advantage, our sponsor today. So let's go look at No House Advantage and some of the props that we are currently projecting to be the most profitable. So, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind pulling up BetPro and the NHA prop on screen, let's pull some of those up. And Eric, does anything really stand out to you about NHA and these numbers?
I mean, the Kyle Lowry one's pretty interesting. Looking at that Lakers game in general, I mean, what do you make about what we saw from your best friend Jimmy Butler last game? I don't know if you saw that Clippers game. It was probably the weirdest Jimmy Butler outing that I've maybe ever seen. He didn't go underneath the basket. He didn't drive. He didn't do anything. And Tyler Hero started just putting dudes in a blender and kind of put the team on his back, though. So there was a little bit of that. But like, I do think Kyle Lowry Jimmy Butler might still be hurt and just kind of figuring out whatever. Just seems like he's meandering out there. Kyle Lowry, 3.5 rebounds. Looking at some of his rates, I only have him project 4.4, but that's good enough when you start talking about landing on 4 expected ROI, right around 62%. Is that what it is? Or win percentage, 62%. Yeah. I think that seems about perfect based on that number. So I like that one quite a bit.
I mean, like a lot of things I say about Jimmy Butler, it's tongue in cheek. But for whatever reason, it seems like the harder I make fun of him, the more he leans into it without knowing.
Yes.
Right? Like, I don't know what kind of impact I have on his career, but it's apparently significant because
in his head,
he only plays. I made fun of him for getting hurt all the time, and I definitely exaggerated how many games he misses. I couldn't have exaggerated it this year. He literally plays every other game for the Heat. They've been in, let's see, how many games have the Heat played to this point? 40-ish? He's missed 16 games so far this year. That's a lot of time to miss already at around the halfway point of the season. And yeah, you brought it up. His last game was 9 points, 2 rebounds, 6 assists for Jimmy Butler. Yeah, he should be better going forward.
It was the most uninvolved I've ever seen him on a basketball floor. I mean, he played for my Timberwolves for a year. That was not a good year, for sure. Philadelphia, Chicago, all of those stints. I mean, you will never see a game quite like that. Tyler Hero just brought the ball up and would chuck it. In the end of the second quarter. Third quarter, you thought Jimmy Butler would start getting it going. Nope, just stood in the corner, didn't do anything. So, yay, Kyle Lowry.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Looking at Kyle Lowry over 3.5 rebounds, totally acceptable.
Romeo Langford starting. He's been starting in some of these spots, but I thought that there was an opportunity for that not to happen. He's 3,100 on DraftKings.
Yeah, he's not someone I'm going to play.
I am.
Romeo Langford has made 9 starts this year, 23.5 minutes per game, 17 fantasy points in those starts. I don't know. Not for me.
Okay. That's fine.
How many minutes are you?
He's one of the worst starters in all of basketball. I want to make that very clear. 0.68 fantasy points per minute. It just feels like somebody that, regardless of game script or anything else, he could end up closing. And, I'm just trying to think about anything to mine out of there. Devin Vassell, their main offensive, Johnson, I guess, would be the main offensive weapon, but Devin Vassell is the best pure scorer on that basketball team. And he's out. And it feels weird that I'm not getting to anything, especially when I like Jalen Brunson like everybody else. I like Julius Randle as a contrarian play compared to where everybody else had him out. I mean, he's 5.5% on DK. That's somebody that even at 10-5, nobody is going to click on. And I like as a contrarian piece. Emmanuel Quickly, I don't think Obi Toppin's presence are going to cut into that into those minutes whatsoever. Maybe Derrick Rose gets a couple in there to really screw things up because he was out last time. But yeah, I'm probably of the mind that we should get to something from San Antonio, and it's weird that I'm not.
It's a 12-game slate. I don't really think we have to get to anything from San Antonio. The other thing too is it's not just that Langford's not a good fantasy producer; he doesn't play big minutes.
Yeah,
it's a bad combination.
I would agree with that. All right, I'm gonna put him in for 24 minutes, and then I'm not gonna get him. If I put him in for 28, like I just did a second ago, he popped up a lot.
So once again, as a starter, averaging it's 23.7 minutes per game as a starter. And he's only played north of 30 minutes once the entire year. It was as a starter, and that came October 30th against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Who was out in that game? Had to be somebody.
But this news came out after lock. You have Devin Vassell off the floor, where I think it's hard to look. Like, he only has a 16.5% usage in 265 minutes with Devin Vassell off the floor. But again, if this game gets wonky, does it really matter? You're looking at a sample. It's weird to see Joshua Primo's name whenever you pull up the on-off court tool. Like, what is he doing right now?
I can make some educated guesses. He's not wearing pants. But he was also not active. So the time that Romeo Langford played a season high 34 minutes, Vassell was also out in that game. But also Jeremy Sokan and Josh Richardson were also both out that
That is important. That is probably the piece that I'm missing here. Let me update it. And
the last start we got from Romeo Langford came 2 games ago, and he played 16 minutes.
It's not great.
And that
I should fix this FanDuel lineup too. That would be a good idea. Who was it that I threw in? SoCan. I don't want to.
Bates drop out that night.
Wild.
Just bad combination. Hard for me to give him a lot of minutes, and hard to think he's going to produce much in those minutes either. Let me just make sure that we don't have anything that came in our Discord channel as far as questions are concerned, and then no more super chats.
Did you get any Keldon Johnson?
No. But
to me. It's wild that we're not playing him.
I mean, it's a big slate. There's a lot of players we could point and be like, oh, it's crazy, I'm not getting to this guy.
That's true. This one feels the craziest to me that I'm not getting to him.
Like, let me look through some other players on.
It's like Zach LaVine and Keldon Johnson. I've projected about the exact same on FanDuel, and they're 600 apart. And why would I, like, how can I not upgrade something else? Like, it feels like I just should, considering 5,500. Just a weird spot.
Have any of the games started yet?
No.
Hornets, Grizzlies has just started.
Okay,
all right, so the games are tipping off now. No points scored in any of the games yet. That was 0-0 in all of them. The 3 have started, but no points scored. Anything else that looks good for you on the no house advantage props? If not, we could open this up and we could look at other sports books as well and just see what kind of value that potentially makes sense.
Let me go back to it here. Cool, like a new intro screen that they have over at No House Advantage here. Pretty cool too. Like pull up the versus the house. Cross-reference it here. Let me pull my table up. Jalen Brunson, 24.5 points, looks about perfectly efficient. Quentin Grimes, don't want to deal with 13.5. He might be somebody who's maybe affected by Obi Toppin. I don't think Emmanuel Quickly necessarily is. Here's what I like. Pat Connaughton, under 9.5 points. What do you think about that one?
Let's see. Pat Connaughton. That's pretty fair to me, 9.5.
Okay. Didn't stay away. I was thinking about shorting that one. Giannis, 6.5. That's about perfectly efficient there. Kevin Durant, 30.5 points. That's exactly what he's kind of listed. Same thing with DeMar DeRozan. I've been playing a lot of overs on Zach LaVine when they've been sitting around 23.5. And obviously, you're just looking for winners in this kind of a capacity. Expected win percentage matters more than expected ROI when you guys are looking at any kind of a table. So you could basically use the NBA prop tool and have opportunity to just see what's the highest win percentage. And if it matches up, sweet. But it looks like everything is pretty efficient in this window. I am going to this Minnesota game. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole heck of a lot that there's like, I need exposure to this one. CJ McCollum steamed up at 25.5 there. He was 23.5 earlier today. I know that. Jonas Valanciunas, 16.5 points. I like the over on that.
You know who's going nuts so far?
Who?
Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris.
It's my dude.
2 minutes into the game, 5 points, 2 rebounds, and a block for Tobias Harris.
Yeah, he was the easiest play in the history of FanDuel.
In the history of so is this the best play in the history of the site?
No, I'm just saying that he was just like a guy that you wanted to play.
Best play ever. Jay, super chat, showdown, need help building lineups for the Heat Lakers. I did not build showdown lineups, but I could go in and do that right now. I don't know what the pricing is, but I'll pull up DraftKings Showdown. I'll upload projections in there, crunch some lineups, see what pops up, and then I will answer your question for you, Jay. So he wants to know who the best plays are for the showdown game between the Heat and the Lakers. One thing I will say, though, is that game is in about 2 hours and 45 minutes. We don't have the starting lineup yet for the Lakers, and that is going to make a really massive difference.
Yep.
I think I know who's going to be starting for the Lakers, but I can't say for sure.
It's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, I thought I was going to get to more of it, and then we had a lot of Sixers that kind of emerged, and we have, other pieces that just kind of look appealing across the entire board. Like, you could get to as many Pelicans as you really wanted to on this slate, and you're not really making a mistake. You could play Najee, Trey, Jonas Valanciunas, my dude. Yeah, I can't imagine there's anything I need to prioritize. That was just kind of like the onset of the show as you're kind of putting the pieces together. I still like Thomas Bryant for tournaments. That has not changed. But
he's asking for showdown, though. So
Thomas Bryant for showdown, everybody's going to be owned in showdown. I still think Thomas Bryant, Russell Westbrook, like those are going to be the two guys I probably get to from the Lakers side the most. On the Miami side, maybe Jimmy Butler comes in a little bit lower owned coming off of that absolute dud against the Clippers. He's still the 1.23 fantasy point per minute guy. Maybe he just looks more involved and more interested this time around. That'd be cool. Not really something that I think you need to be thinking too much about. More of like looking at Kyle Lowry from a prop perspective. I thought there was something to be said for a guy who's already averaging 4.5 rebounds on the season and then is sitting at 3.5. So no question that was going to look good in the NBA prop tool there. So I'd probably for showdown from the Lakers side, Russell Westbrook, Thomas Bryant, probably the only two showdown captains I'd look at.
So I ran lineups and I made 200 lineups, just uploaded projections, ran them. And once again, we don't have the starting lineups for these teams yet. That will definitely make a difference. But these are the players I got to the most in the lineups I ran. The 5 most rostered captains for me in this order, it was Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Russell Westbrook, Tyler Hero, then Thomas Bryant. As far as utility plays go, the ones I got to the most in utility, that is also the same. Westbrook, Adebayo, Butler, Hero, Bryant. Other players that I ended up getting to a good amount of on the cheap side, Austin Reeves and Patrick Beverley.
Love it. I like it. I like it a lot.
There we go. Eric likes it as well. Early results from the games. We just talked about Tobias Harris. Are we panicking about James Harden yet? 4 minutes into the game, 1 assist, no other stats.
Didn't we get off the show? Everybody was freaking out about Giannis. How did he turn out yesterday?
In the nature of the show, though, when you're 3 minutes into the first games this late, you should be freaking out a little more.
Yeah, just freaking out. Oh, no.
Andrew Nembhard.
I'm so worried.
Andrew Nembhard, 3 of 3 from the field with 7 points.
That dude is a good basketball player. A bucket for James Harden. There we go. Let's start.
Panic over. Steven Adams, rough start for him. 4 minutes.
Good.
1 rebound. No other statistics. No personal fouls, though.
Good. He didn't even end up on my betting card today. I thought I was going to, for sure, 10.5 points. And I was like, I'm not going to play him in DFS. I can't possibly advise to bet for him. And also didn't bet it last night. It ended up juiced along with rebounds that were just insane. I understand Brandon Clark out. I understood a lot of things, but there were so many centers to play and just felt like you needed to get away from just another piece of chalk to be underweight. I don't have 0. I have like 15% on DK, but 44% of him is a ridiculous number.
Desmond Bane is off to a good start.
Oh,
we like to see Desmond Bane. 1 point, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a steal in 4 minutes.
Very painful. Well, you're a big, strong guy.
I was until I fall on the mask. That. By the way, have you ever seen the Harley Quinn HBO show?
No, but Jordan Klein, good to see you. Lovely hairdo.
So basically they do the same kind of voice for Bane in it, but they basically make him an idiot in the show, and it's very funny.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. That's pretty good. Is that a real clip that I saw of like Harley Quinn doing the striptease kind of thing? Is that from, because I know Kaylee Cuoco does the voice of Harley Quinn for the show. That'd be pretty.
Yeah, so it's the show is kind of like a cross in between South Park and it's kind of like South Park, Harley Quinn, and then like Suicide Squad kind of. It's very good. It's funny. At least the first couple seasons were, and then I stopped watching, so I'm not sure. But I did enjoy it a lot at first.
All right, I'll have to tune in. I'll have to check it out because I do love the Batman. And also, now that James Gunn is in charge of DC, you can only be bullish on DC going forward. Like, that guy is a genius.
Maybe. I mean, it depends. It depends if he was involved in that shitty Black Adam movie or not.
Well, considering he had the conversation and said, I don't think we can do this anymore, that is probably a good decision. I didn't even see it, but based on what I heard, did not want to be a part of anything there. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it ended up getting uploaded to like a week ago or something. I think it was on HBO Max. So I turned it on. I tried to watch the first few minutes of the movie. I was like, yeah, this is no good. To me,
this is no good.
So it was also, I was not sober when I turned it on TV. And I actually had a decision where because just the way I was thinking right now, I was like, I have two options right now. I could either keep watching this movie or I could turn the TV off and look at nothing. Those are the only two things I possibly thought I could do in the moment. And I went with the blank TV. And I had a wonderful night.
It's not a ringing endorsement. Honestly, I'd love to see the movie review on the poster of that one. Would rather sit in dark room. Greg Ehrenberg, Variety. It's like, that'd be awesome.
We've got a follow up from Team AP. Says the Gun was not involved with Black Adam. So by the way, look at the score. The Phoenix Suns Cleveland Cavaliers game. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that Donovan Mitchell is not going to score 71 points again. Because the Cleveland Cavaliers might not score 71 points as a team. We are 5 minutes into that game, and the Cavs are down 8-2.
I legitimately talked about it last night. Again, this is one of the sick things about doing a show the night before where you're breaking everything down and you start updating your model way earlier and you're trying to give people good advice. You're trying to be entertaining, do the whole thing. I completely forgot about how badly I wanted to short Donovan Mitchell today. Completely forgot because there are 12 games. You start doing a bunch of things. You're playing FanDuel, DraftKings. You want to give good advice for fantasy. And I just forgot that like one of the things I wanted to do was short Donovan Mitchell. Just forgot.
We've got some other questions just in general. Vinny C says HBO Max has got to put together an adult version of something DC like they did with Spawn back in the day. That's kind of what the Harley Quinn series is. It's animated, but it is
sick.
Jake Swale says Suicide Squad was the worst movie that he's ever seen. I like the Suicide Squad. The first one was no good. I like the second one though.
Yeah, the second. So, what was is that the one with what's his face? John Cena. Yeah, that was awesome.
It was hilarious.
That was an awesome movie. The squids that are like invading, like the South American. Yeah, that was incredible. How good that movie was. That was that was a COVID highlight. That was a COVID highlight.
The first one is incredibly boring. The first two, it's not even. It's not. It just exists. Like you watch, it's like this is. It's the most cookie cutter, bland superhero movie you'll ever see. The second one though is awesome. I love that movie.
Yeah, and no offense, but it's like the Jared Leto thing didn't hit the way that we were expecting it to. Like that's. I think that's the biggest problem with the first one.
He was also only in it for like 7 minutes or something.
It was a very short allotment. It didn't work well. The Will Smith thing, like Viola Davis is a great villain. She was in the second one too. I think like she was
she's in a lot of that.
Great villain for it. John Cena kind of flipping into the villain role in that movie too, which you kind of didn't expect. Again, spoiler alert, came out 3 years ago or 2 years ago now. I don't think statute of limitations is up, y'all.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some. Every once in a while, you talk about a show and people spoilers. It's like, well, it was like you can't spoil The Godfather 2 at this point. It came out a while ago.
Yeah, that's on you, folks. That's on you.
See if we have any other questions that have come up. Doesn't look like there's any super chats. Nothing to hit on.
PJ Tucker headed to the locker room. Oh my God.
Paul Reed's about
to break this.
Oh
this
no.
Is so dumb. 4,100 on FanDuel.
Oh my God.
Joking me? Is this real life? Why are we doing this?
Well, who checked in? Who checked in when he got hurt? Let's see.
Hawk smash.
Who checked in? So we don't know yet because they went into.
But you just put me on screen for that whole thing for my temper tantrum. See, this is the same thing as the fucking Rudy Gobert thing, where it was like Rudy Gobert. I didn't play him, but I was upset because it's like, well, if you didn't play a 5% Nas
and it's
Reed,
Paul
you're dead.
Reed in the rotation ahead of Montrezl Harrell. Oh, boy.
So we're dead. We're dead.
Oh,
if you don't have Paul Reed at this moment in time, you're dead. But are you doing like a mirage of the BetMGM picture into me tilting as if I'm in my feelings?
We should do that. We should take stills of Eric reacting to stuff on shows, and that should be new BetMGM graphics in the future.
I need new coworkers.
Oh. 7 minutes into the Suns Cavs
like
game.
Absolute dunce cap. Whatever.
7 minutes into the Suns Cavs game, and the score is 8-4.
I don't even care. Don't even care.
What is going to happen?
Just tell me when Paul Reed has 15, because he'll have 15 by the end of the quarter now.
All right. Well, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left in the show, so we'll see.
Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we play daily fantasy sports and understand? Like, why do we, like, what are we even doing here? 12 game slate. Paul Reed went from being the best play coming off the bench at reduced ownership on FanDuel, and I was going to play him in 2 or 3. And I'm happy to have J-Val. I'm still happy to have J-Val, but don't get me wrong. Paul Reed now, if he's ahead in the rotation and you just played him blindly at 10%, you're sitting on the nuts, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Oh, okay. By the way, the NBA app made a mistake. Paul Reed did not check in. Montrezl Harrell did. Paul Reed did not check in.
That was better than sex. That was bad. Oh, that was good.
I have to find, by the way, what I like about doing shows with Eric is there's really innocuous stuff you can tilt him about.
F you, Gumpy. Let's go.
I just thought, by the way, this made me think of a new fun bit for me in the post-lock show going forward. I can't tell Eric what it is or else it'll ruin it.
Be ready for y'all.
Markelle Fultz?
DMX.
You okay?
No, I'm great. I feel much better.
Markelle Fultz is 4 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists so far. Wendell Carter Jr. off to a good start with 6 points and 3 boards. On the other side of the game, the Jalen Williams front court. Jalen Williams is off to a good start.
Which one?
Well, I don't know because I'm looking at the stats in the NBA app.
Markelle Fultz is off to a good start. He was in one of my 3 lineups. That'd be all right.
I said that.
Thank you. I like that. Thank you. I wasn't listening to you. I don't care. You're mean.
Jalen Williams with an E has 2 points, a rebound, and assist, 2 steals, and a block. Just crushing it with the defensive stats.
My dude.
All right. Sixers.
Oh, Desmond Bain, an assist.
Another one?
Just another one. Best music.
So let's see. I think but that's actually something that happens in that show at one point. They do a villain award show. They do a villain award show? Yeah. Oh, now I have to watch this. Again, I just heard it's legitimately very funny. It's really well written. Yeah. I'm gonna have to see this. I'm pretty interested. All I know is that I saw the Twitter thing going around where Harley Quinn was like seducing somebody, like the Robin character or whatever, and I was like, that can't be real. And then that was legitimately from the show. Let me try to tell you which game is not gonna go under. Hello, Charlotte and Memphis. Why don't you score 150 apiece today? Dennis Smith Jr. out there. Haven't seen him in a while. Good to see you, my friend. Just out there getting steals. Oh, that actually reminds me. So there was, speaking of the villain award show, one of the funniest jokes that's in that show is there's an award. It's the best villain of the year. And the finalists, it's like the Joker, the Riddler, and Kevin Spacey. Oh, that's amazing. Kevin Spacey. Yeah. We can't even talk about that. So just like we don't talk about Bruno, we don't talk about Kevin Spacey. Anything you want to close with in terms of bets? Anything else that we want to give to the people on the way out? Not really. I mean,
I have a lot of interest again in the Sacramento thing coming up in the late night hammer. I'll probably put an update into the premium Discord coming up a little bit later, but I am rather interested in overs from De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis here. We did see randomly one of the two, I can't remember what it was, a week or two ago, where they randomly got ruled out. We want to pay attention to that Lakers starting lineup. We want to pay attention to some of those bets specifically, but for the most part, I think we're ready. We're locked and loaded. Hopefully you got something. Lots of news still to come. Keep updating your lineups.
And tonight, it's the return of the PGA season. PGA Live Before Lock, that's going to be in a little bit. We got Ben Raza and Jeff Ulrich are going to be breaking that down. So go check that out. For people asking, why is PGA Lock today? It's not. It's tomorrow. PGA Live Before Lock is tomorrow.
PGA Live Before
PGA
Lock
PGA Live Before Lock is tonight. We always do it on Wednesday night. The reason being is because typically slates start, Thursday morning, Thursday around noon. So we do the Live Before Lock the night before, so everybody can get the information. So check that out later in the day. If you didn't do it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck tonight, guys.
Oz read out. Matters. So.